everyone.
I just need to do one more thing and I'll be probably ready to begin. Are you ready, Adrian?
Yeah. Okay. All right. With that, we will begin. Welcome everyone to Ava Community Energy's Board of Directors meeting. Today is Wednesday, July 17th, 2024. The year is already halfway done. If you're thinking about Christmas, we're closer there than the start. It is 6 p.m. With that, if we may go ahead and have roll call, please.
Thank you. Thank you. Alameda County.
Present.
Dublin.
Present.
Emeryville.
Present.
Fremont.
Present.
Thank you. Hayward.
Present.
Hayward.
Hayward present.
Thank you. Lathrop. Hold on 1 second. You said they need to be removed. Lathrop. I will come back to Lathrop. Livermore. Newark.
Present.
Oakland. Here. Thank you. Piedmont.
Here.
San Leandro. Here. Stockton.
Present.
Tracy.
Tracy's here participating from the 1755 Harvest Landing Lane location.
Thank you. Union City. Community Advisory Committee.
Present.
Albany.
Present.
Pleasanton.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Okay, I will mention, Berkeley, that we do not have a quorum in the room at this time. There are 8 members in the room. So at this time, we'll be continuing to have you as a member of the public, respectfully. Sorry about that. And we're going to hold off on swearing in until we achieve the quorum in the room and can do that from the non-notice location. So sorry about that, but thanks for your understanding and your appreciation for that. Okay, so with that, we'll go ahead and do a Pledge of Allegiance. Member Kyle, if you don't mind. Sure. Where's the flag? Right behind.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
San Leandro sets the pace. All right, with that, we'll be moving to any other administrative items? No, I think we've handled that with Berkeley. Okay, so with that, we'll move to public comment. Public comment, item 3. This item is reserved for persons wishing to address the board on any Ava community energy related matter that are not otherwise listed on this meeting agenda. Public comments on matters listed on the agenda shall be heard at that time when the matter is called. As with all public comment, members of the public who wish to address the board are customarily limited to 2 minutes. We'll stay at that per speaker, and we ask that you complete an electronic speaker slip. At this time, are there any members of the public who would like to address Ava Community Energy during item 3? Matters open, not on the agenda. Yes. Let's go in the room first, like custom. So are there any members in the room? Yes, welcome.
Thank you. My name is Audrey Ichinose. I'm a member of East Bay Clean Power Alliance and the California Alliance for Community Energy. I want to speak about the potential benefit of resilience hubs to Ava Community Energy. Several important points were made during Monday's CAC meeting that I think they're repeating. One is that our agency is committed to local economic development as formulated in EBCE's and now Ava's Local Development Business Plan. And 2, our need to protect our already disadvantaged communities from the new hardships imposed by climate change. Resilience hubs could offer progress on both of these fronts. What are resilience hubs? What can they do for our most underserved communities of color? And what value could they have for AVA Community Energy and its member jurisdictions? A resilience hub is such a new concept. It would be good to hold a study session on their potential for a community energy agency like ours. What services could they provide our most vulnerable communities? What would be involved in choosing sites and setting them up? In addition to providing services, could resilience hubs also be community microgrids that could supply AVA with locally generated electricity, functioning as virtual or seemingly like virtual power plants as described in the local development business plan? I hope AVA will work with the Local Clean Energy Alliance on developing what could be important anchors for underserved communities. LCEA has good relations with many community groups, both large and small, that could benefit from resilience groups, hubs. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any additional members of the public that wish to address AVA Community and Energy at this time in the room?
You recognize for 2 minutes.
Good evening, board members, staff and community members. My name is Colin Cook Miller, and I reside here in occupied Lijan Ohlone territory, also known as Oakland, in AVA Community Energy Service Territory. And I'm here this evening representing the Reclaim Our Power Utility Justice Campaign and Coalition, which is working to abolish PG&E and implement Golden State Energy through a worker-led and community-led just transition. We are very much in solidarity with the East Bay Clean Power Alliance advocacy on opposing the purchase or taking of nuclear allotments from PG&E, which we know is not on the agenda for this board meeting. AVA Community Energy has historically rejected PG&E's nuclear power offer 3 times previously. All 3 times the community's voice was loud and clear. AVA customers don't want dirty nuclear energy in our power mix. The opinion of the community is very clear. From the very beginning, when AVA was East Bay Community Energy, the Joint Powers Agreement made it clear that this board had a commitment to achieve 100% local clean renewable energy. And we don't want AVA Community Energy to back out from that commitment. There are several cities in AVA Energy territory that are actually explicitly nuclear-free cities: Berkeley, Oakland, and Hayward. These are all major AVA Community Energy customer bases, and it should be clear that we do not, any of us, want nuclear energy in our energy mix. Finally, nuclear energy is dangerous. It's dangerous to our communities, to the environment, to workers, and it represents a desecration and violation of indigenous rights in the places where it is mined and processed. So we ask that when PG&E's offer of nuclear energy come back before this board, that you all respond with a resounding no. Thank you.
Okay. Do you have any additional speaker cards?
Yes.
Okay.
Selena Feliciano, recognize for 2 minutes.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Selena Feliciano. I live here in Oakland, in West Oakland specifically, and I'm here representing the East Bay Clean Power Alliance and also the Energy Democracy Project. We're a national network of about 40 organizations that are working towards a truly reimagined energy future where everyone has the energy they need to live, work, and thrive. So I spend a lot of my day thinking about energy because energy, as you all know here in this room, is so central to the ways in which we live our life. You know, we get to be on the computers, we have an air-conditioned room, we get to call in with our friends and colleagues. And as a resident of West Oakland, I also know how energy can be a real source of harm. It's in the air quality of West Oakland. It's in the cause of high asthma rates of youth on my street. It's in the dirty, polluting cars that continue to go to the Port of Oakland every single day. And so when I see decisions like nuclear allotments being put again for the 4th time for consideration here in AVA Community Energy's board decisions, and I know that's not necessarily on the agenda today, but potentially being considered, it worries me because if we're really starting to understand and make decisions that reflect the need for energy that is not just accessible and affordable, but clean, and making sure that we all have our lives to thrive, this is the sort of decision that actually goes against that. You know, this has been rejected 3 times already, and community members have continued to share that this is not what is wanted. And so I urge you all, as a community member here, who also is part of the Ava Community Energy footprint and landscape, to vote no when that decision does come up. I don't want nuclear energy in my mix, and I know a lot of community members who I've spoken to and continue to speak to on the daily don't want it in their mix either. Thank you for considering.
Jessica Tovar with the Local Clean Energy Alliance. I just want to say that, and I have brought this up before, that I was really concerned about the fact that PG&E had not even filed their advice letter on the nuclear offer, and we shouldn't be agendizing items before documents are available or offers are real and in writing. We should have all the information, both for the decision makers and also for the rest of the general public. So I want to emphasize that. I did see that something was filed, and if you have not received that, I can share that with you myself. But just to, again, to really emphasize, I think it's a huge problem when the public has to find information for board members of an agency. I hope that this is a turning point, and that things would be done much more differently moving forward. And just to update you, we have had a petition. There's like, I think 238 signatures of folks who are opposed to adding nuclear to Ava Community Energy, as well as a sign-on letter that I believe has like 27 organizations. And there's actually more that haven't signed on to it, but I know have passed resolutions. So I just want to emphasize again that I do think it's a bad move to add PG&E's nuclear energy, the energy that they have not had a market to sell off, and really are now pushing it again on community choice programs, which essentially, whether you see it or not, it's actually your competition. You should be doing better than PG&E, not mirroring them. Thank you.
Do you have any additional speakers in the room? Okay, you have online. Before you do that, are there any additional speakers in the room that wish to speak that have not yet turned in a speaker card? Please rise and come to the podium. All right, let's go on to virtual, please.
Great, thank you. Susan Silver, you're recognized for 2 minutes.
Hello, can you all hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, my name is Susan Silber, and I represent Collective Resilience based in Berkeley in Ava Community Energy's jurisdiction. Also a member of the East Bay Clean Power Alliance. I'd like to speak on your consideration of taking nuclear allotments from PG&E, as well as express my support to fund resilience hubs, both of which are not on the agenda for this board meeting. So first, as was stated by the previous speakers, Ava Community Energy has rejected PG&E's nuclear offer 3 times. The community has stated loud and clear that we do not want nuclear energy in the power mix. You did make a commitment to achieve 100% clean renewable energy, and we do not want Ava to backstep this commitment. So I live in Berkeley, which is a nuclear-free city and a major community energy customer. So also want to express my firm support for Ava Community Energy to fund resilience hubs. We very much appreciate your continued conversations about funding microgrids for resilience hubs. We think that these are some of the most scalable and replicable organizing models around. And I want to be clear that the definition of resilience hubs is very much holistic and rooted in community-led programming. Microgrids are just one piece of a resilience hub. So we urge you to first fund the programming work, the coalition work, and to not just fund a few sites, but find a way to support the many, many sites who want to become resilience hubs. And appreciate that you want to host a study session. There are many of us that could be up support for this session around funding resilience hubs. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Beth Weinberger, you're recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank you. My name is Beth Weinberger. I represent Kahila Community Synagogue, an Alameda County congregation of more than 500 households, most of whom are located in either Oakland or Berkeley, both of which, as you know, are nuclear-free zones. I agree with the points already made by some of our coalition colleagues who have spoken today, but I wanted to point out as well that AVA is a public agency that not only has committed to providing the communities it serves with clean energy, but implicitly as a public agency, it should be providing safe energy. And we all know that nuclear is not safe. And your communities have told you multiple times they don't want it. And it's time for you to finally tell PG&E to stop even offering it, because we really don't want it. Thank you.
Thank you. Emily Ross, you're recognized for 2 minutes.
Good evening, board members, staff, and community. My name is Emily Ross. I'm with the Reclaim Our Power Utility Justice Campaign. Pleased to see you aren't considering PG&E's offer of nuclear energy tonight. Want to be another voice encouraging you to reject that offer if and when it comes to you. As you know, this body has rejected that offer multiple times already amidst robust community input. It should continue to be rejected, given your commitment to achieve 100% clean renewable energy, the nuclear-free policies of several cities in your jurisdiction, and the ongoing calls from community. PG&E is a bad company. They don't share community values or even AVA's approach. Don't pick up where PG&E left off. You know, focus on your own mission to prioritize local, affordable, and clean energy. Do that if this item comes before you. Do that in all that you do. You know, be led by your own mission and the voices of your residents and customers. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Aya Paz, recognized for 2 minutes.
Great, thank you, board members. Hi, my name is Ayla Peters-Fass. I work with Local Clean Energy Alliance. I wanted to echo some of the points that people have made about the resilience hubs. I know that there has been a lot of board support and interest in a study session and learning more about how resilience hubs about their role in climate and energy resilience in their communities, about how they serve their communities during times of need, during times of climate disaster. And I first want to thank the board for their demonstrated interest in issues around community resilience, in the curiosity to learn more. I think that's a really great sign that the board is moving in the right direction. I also wanted to formally extend an invitation on behalf of Local Clean Energy Alliance to have a study session together. Local Clean Energy Alliance has many strong and long-lasting relationships with resilience hubs in AVA community energy territory. There are a lot of resilience hubs and potential resilience hubs that would be really excited to talk to AVA about what they're doing, what they want to do, how to collaborate together. And we would be very interested to bring together board members and resilience hubs to the same table to have conversations around resilience work. We'd be happy to organize and facilitate a study session for the board. If this is of interest, my email is my first name, AYLA, @localcleanenergy.org. And I hope that this conversation can continue. Thank you.
Thank you. Hernando Sanchez, you recognized for 2 minutes.
Good evening, AVA Board and community members. I'm Hernando Sanchez, Energy Democracy Organizer with the Local Clean Energy Alliance and an Oakland resident with an AVA Community Energy jurisdiction. I urge AVA Community Energy to reconsider accepting nuclear allotments from PG&E. Although this matter is not on the agenda for this board meeting, it remains crucial. AVA Community Energy has pledged to achieve 100% clean, renewable energy from the outset, and it's imperative that its commitment be honored. Additionally, several cities under AVA's jurisdiction, such as Berkeley, Oakland, and Hayward, have declared themselves nuclear-free and are significant customers of AVA Community Energy. The decision on nuclear allotments would profoundly impact these communities. Also, just to add on, resilient hubs are crucial and essential for the communities. They have a lot of benefits, and we should be funding this type of resource for community members. Thank you.
Thank you. Woody Hastings, you're recognized for 2 minutes. Woody Hastings. You're recognized for 2 minutes. We are not.
We can move on to the next and come back to him. Maybe we can resolve it. Sure.
There are no further speakers.
Well, then, why don't we try one more time for him? Woody, are you able to hear us or join the meeting? He's unmuted, right, Adrian?
He just unmuted.
Mr. Hastings, are you able to join our meeting? Do you hear us? Okay, we'll be closing the public comment. Apologize for the technical challenge. Okay, with that, we'll close public comment and bring it back to the board. At this time, staff, are there any agenda amendments? I just want to make sure I ask before we kind of get going here. None? Okay. All right, so we have a few new members. I'll just kind of maybe mention how we generally run it, at least under the tutelage I'm doing here. We try to introduce the item, do clarifying questions, open it up for the public, and then bring it back to the board for deliberations. And hopefully we'll kind of keep that format, but feel free to correct me left or right as we go through this. Our next bit of stuff is the consent agenda. It's items 4 through 12. At this time, does anyone have anything they would like to remove from consent, pull from consent, or any clarifying questions on consent? I'll go with members in the room first. Seeing none, any members online have any comments, questions, or items from consent they would like to pull? Seeing none? Okay, CAC, did you have any comments on consent? None. Okay, so we'll open it up to public comment. Are there any public comments, public that would like to speak on items 4 through 12, the consent calendar at this time? I'll go first in the room. If you would like to speak on the consent calendar, please stand and approach the podium. Seeing none, we'll go online. Are there any members on the public that would like to speak on any items on the consent calendar, 4 through 12?
There are no hands raised at this time.
Open and close public comment, bring it back to the board. I would entertain a motion on consent. Moved by St. Leandro, seconded by Stockton. Any final comments? I'll just make one as board chair. Item number 6 is the administrative procurement policy update for AVA. I spoke with our new CEO about this. There's no stacking of authorities or dollar limits in that. So both his understanding as well as our attorneys is that it is a la carte or individual for each of those authorities granted. And I'll also mention for the board, item 12 we've seen before, and we'll be obviously moving towards surplus. So with that, we have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Thank you. Alameda County.
Aye.
Dublin.
Aye.
Emeryville.
Aye.
Fremont.
Aye.
Hayward.
Aye.
Lathrop. Livermore. Newark.
Yes.
Oakland.
Aye.
Piedmont.
Aye.
San Leandro. Aye. Stockton? Yes. Tracy?
Yes.
Union City? Albany?
Aye.
Pleasanton?
Aye.
The consent agenda is approved.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, with that, we'll be moving on to the regular agenda of Ava Community Energy. And with that, we are on item number 13, the CEO report. Welcome.
All right, well, this is my first official CEO report following my appointment in June, so.
No pressure.
Thank you, appreciate the applause. It is noteworthy this last Monday was actually Nick's last day, so he just wrapped up his last month as a formal advisor to myself. Certainly, we wish him well. We'll miss him, but we, wish him the best in his future endeavors. But you're all stuck with me going forward now. So no, but in all seriousness, thank you very much for all the support that I've had from the board and from our staff just over the last month. It's been just a resounding level of support and encouragement. So continue to be very excited for this role. Lots to be done, and looking forward to it all. Let me note two really quick items before I jump into the details in the memo. The first is one of my big priorities in stepping into this role is to just do deeper and more frequent engagement with the board and some of our key stakeholders. So I did want to highlight that. I've started to do some outreach there. Lots of meetings to be had. Going to start with our primary board members, move on to our alternates, broader city staff as may be relevant. And then certainly want to, meet with CAC members as well. And then look for some of our engagement with our external stakeholders, community members, energy supply partners, CAISO, CPUC, other policymakers. So I just wanted to highlight that as a big priority for me for the first year. It's going to take me time to do that, so I appreciate the patience from everyone, but I'm already starting to embark on that and, looking forward to do that over the next several months and beyond. The second item I wanted to highlight is really, it was a great privilege of mine to attend a celebration we had this morning, which was a ribbon cutting event down in Fresno County. And that was for the Scarlet Solar and Storage Project. And that's a project that was developed by EDPR. They developed and constructed that project. It's a 200 megawatt solar project and 40 megawatt storage project. It's about 150 miles south of here. We are an off-taker to that for 100 megawatts and 100 megawatts of solar, 30 megawatts of storage, so a little more than half. And San Jose Clean Energy was the power buyer for the other portion. So we did that RFO in partnership with them, negotiated the PPA back in 2018-19 timeframe. And I just wanted to highlight, these are big projects and they're difficult to build, and much of what we talk about is how we increase our renewable energy, clean energy procurement, and it takes time to do that, and there's a lot of roadblocks and challenges in that process along the way, and it's nice to celebrate these moments where you can see some of the results, the tangible difference that you can make in getting some of these projects online and talk to the different stakeholders and really key partners that were part of that. In this case, EDPR, talking to members of Fresno County itself, and talking to unions. I mean, this project created an equivalent of over 250 union construction jobs, which is fantastic. And the project as a whole will produce enough energy to equal an average of about 68,000 California homes. So it's significant. We're proud of it. And we'll be buying that clean power for 20 years. So I want to just share my appreciation for our partner EDPR and our staff who worked really tirelessly to make sure that this project could come online. So that's a bit of a highlight I wanted to share from earlier today. And with that, I'll jump right into the CEO report. So in terms of meetings in June, we canceled the July 3rd executive committee meeting. And our next meeting will be held on September 4th. So we'll be heading into recess over the month of August. That will be our next board meeting following tonight's meeting. We did have a marketing, regulatory, and legislative subcommittee meeting on Friday, June 21st. We did not meet a quorum, but because they were informational items, we were able to use that time and present publicly to the board members that were able to attend that, as well as the public. And we covered two main items. A bit of detail on our marketing efforts, and then a summary of some of the equity initiatives that we've done. I won't go into all of that in full detail, but the materials are publicly available from that meeting, and they're linked in the CEO report that's posted online. What is included in this report is just a brief summary of some of the different initiatives that we've done. I certainly won't read all of those line items, but they're there for reference. I'll highlight a few, and they range from programs that we've launched ourselves and programs that we've sort of enabled through state funds and tried to facilitate. So California Arrearage Payment Program is one example of that. That was a COVID debt relief program, which brought in significant funds of close to $14 million to our to cover customer energy bill debt. We also did, as we all know, $50 bill credits for Care and Fair customers over 2 years that totaled over $12 million. And then the last couple items, which is Care and Fair related, there's been discussion of late just about how do we continue to get customers that are eligible for Care and Fair program enrolled. It's a great program. We believe there is greater eligibility amongst our customers. And so we've made a variety of efforts, both working with local community-based organizations to try to educate, inform our customers that may be eligible, and encourage them, facilitate them to enroll in the program further. And we've done a lot internally among staff. So something that we talked about in that MRL subcommittee meeting is some of the interesting data science work that we do internally to determine eligibility criteria and how to sort of target these customers to really send them information, engage with them, educate them on what we can do on the benefits of the Care and Fair program. So it's difficult. We don't have income data, so we don't fully know the eligibility that all these customers have, and that's where you really have to be creative with buying data sets, doing a lot of data science, modeling work to understand who is eligible and encourage them to sign into this program. So more efforts to be done there, but something that I think we are excited to share just in terms of some of the success that we've had in doing those outreach campaigns. And then the last board meeting that we had was on July 10th. That was the Finance, Administrative, and Procurement Subcommittee meeting. We covered a few of the items that we are planning to cover this evening as well, related to the R100 cost allocation methodology, Fremont R100 citywide opt-up, and San Joaquin County GPA membership. That next meeting will be on September 11th, 2024. So that's it to wrap up a brief summary of June and early July's board meetings. The next thing I just want to touch on is some new members, new employees that we have. We do have a lot of open roles that we are trying to recruit for. It takes a lot of work to do what we're trying to accomplish, and so hopefully we'll get more and more great talent at our agency. We're really, really proud of the staff that we have currently, but we do need to continue to grow, so I wanted to highlight that. With that said, we're excited to welcome Molly Vasquez, who is our HR operations manager. There are a handful of roles here. She is the one full-time employee included here. I won't read through everyone's bio. It is there for reference. These are great people and impressive backgrounds, very smart and engaged employees. And then we have a handful of interns, 2 in the public policy team, China Duff and Kendall Downey, and then 2 in the customer organization, Sarah Sprankle as our marketing intern and Avery Kelly as our outreach intern. So really excited to have those folks here for the summer. It's a shorter stint, but they bring a lot of great energy, intellectual curiosity to the role. So excited to have them join us. And that is it for the CEO report.
Excellent. Thank you very much. All right. Are there any clarifying questions by members in the room? Any clarifying questions by members online? CAC? Okay, I'll open it up to public comment. Or is there any public comment on the CEO report at this time in the room? If so, please approach the podium. Seeing none, any public comment online?
Yes, we have one hand raised.
Go ahead, please.
Igor Traeger, recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank you so much, and apologies that I can't be in the room with y'all today. I had a potential exposure Sunday night, so I'm self-isolating until at least tomorrow. So sorry for the awkwardness of wanting to ask questions through this process, but I wanted to ask on the NAM adder, if there's a way to track how many of the customers that benefited from the adder had existing solar compared to those that may have been incentivized to go solar as a result of some combination of this adder and or other incentives they may have received.
Shall I respond to that? Or?
Yeah, this is the slightly awkward part of, obviously, we know he's the Berkeley member eventually. Are there any additional comments during the public comment period? And then we'll follow up with answering that. So no, okay, yes, please, if staff has any comments to that.
I think the short answer is it's difficult to really parcel out the decision-making that went behind Karen Fair customers that did elect to install solar, as to whether that was the NEM adder that made that difference versus an independent decision that, you know, that would have moved forward even without that NEM adder. So we don't really have that distinguished. So I, you know, can't say with certainty, but you know, it's not nothing, but you know, obviously there's a lot more behind that decision than perhaps just the premium or the you know, that bit of a NEM adder that we've identified here.
Okay. Any additional public comments or any speakers?
There are no hands raised at this time.
So close public comment and bring it back. Any additional board comments at this time in the room? Online? Going to try to go quickly, so obviously if you are prepped. All right, with that, we'll be continuing on to item number 14, the CAC chair report. And we can do it as item as we have in the past as well. So.
Perfect. For the chair report, we met this Monday to cover the items such as the Fremont R100 default requests, the new community inclusion of San Joaquin, and the e-bike program. Spoiler alert, we were very supportive of those 3 items. Additionally, we also took public comment, and there was a question asked if the PG&E nuclear allocation item would be agendized. He was shared that it would possibly occur at the September board meeting, and we would expect to hear it again at the CEC if so. As mentioned in public comment, the Local Clean Energy Alliance with La Paz shared the opportunity to have that Resilient Hub study session. The CEC has shown interest and support, and it's an opportunity to discuss resilient hubs. And we would look to see that the board could support that partnership and give that direction to staff, partner with them on this opportunity. And finally, Member Pacheco from the CEC provided some information where eventually would support through AB 1373, which is a centralized procurement of specified long lead time resources, and being discussed at the CPUC, I think in September, would really be towards 10 gigawatts of offshore wind by 2035. So he provided some information. I believe Adrian is sharing that out, just around AB 1373 to provide a mechanism to bring more long-term resources online, such as offshore wind. I think that's it for right now. I will dive deeper into the comments from the CEC during the items.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Any clarifying questions of the CAC by any members in the room? Online? Any public comment for the CAC at this time in the room? This is, you can see the pattern. Online?
Yes. Woody Hastings, you're recognized for 2 minutes.
Oh, hopefully it works out.
Okay, right. Can you hear me this time?
We can, please.
Okay, good. Yeah, I figured I'd chime in on this since once again the nuclear allocation was mentioned. And so Woody Hastings with the Climate Center, statewide nonprofit organization. And I just wanted to also chime in with a bit of a long view, especially for board members and others who may not have been around in the early formation years, initiation of community choice aggregation in the state of California. The Climate Center was involved starting in 2008, between 2008 and 2020, roughly, and myself, roughly since 2005 on community choice and getting it going around the state. And I can tell you that the interest, the intention of expanding community choice, initiating it was really to get away from the polluting central station model. You know, as was stated in the previous open public comment period, it's not just the emissions from the power plant, it's the trail of contamination all the way back to extraction and the harm and the peril that exists for communities along the way. And so we, you know, we're really, the intention is to, advance local clean, meaning solar, wind, other, other distributed energy resources, local clean energy that creates jobs in the community, looking first at what kind of resources can be developed in the community that create jobs and are truly clean and that advance, environmental justice and other goals. So that's pretty much what I wanted to say earlier. Thank you very much for the opportunity to comment.
Thank you. There are no further, there are no further hands raised at this time.
Okay, close public comment on the CAC item. Bringing it back to the board members for any final comments. Any final comments or questions in the board members in the room? Any comments by board members online? Great, thank you very much. Okay.
Just one quick question.
Oh, sorry.
Are there any vacancies currently on the CAC, or are we all full now?
I believe we're full right now, that I'm aware of. I would look at the clerk, but yeah, and then we might bring on another seat, right? So yeah, no vacancies at the moment.
And I also wanted to mention, I think the CAC reaching out for Resilience Hub knowledge and understanding is an excellent area of AVA to do that as a group and a body. So I'll lend support to that. Okay, so with that, we'll move to item number 15, Renewable 100 Cost Allocation Methodology. This is an informational item for all in the room. It's presented by Howard and Doug. Please.
All right, great. We can move to the next slide. So this is a pretty in the weeds topic, but can have some pretty meaningful policy implications from a cost perspective, from a rate setting perspective, and value proposition perspective. So we will move through it, based off of feedback from the FAP subcommittee meeting. This was originally planned to be an action item, I'll note, but we changed it to an informational item, just given the importance of this and the need to digest the information further and likely warrant further discussion. So just want to give that as a little bit of background. You can go to the next slide, Adrian. So we of course have two energy products that we primarily provide to our customers. Bright Choice, which is kind of between 50 and 60% renewable energy, priced at a 5% discount to PG&E. And then we have Renewable 100, which is 100% renewable energy. Currently, it is all California-based renewable energy, and that's priced at a 1/4 cent premium above PG&E. Historically, R100 pricing has been set at a premium, and it's been based off of the differential of the incremental renewable energy that is purchased, and that differential is reflective between R100 and Bright Choice. Currently, due to multiple components, one is the fact that renewable energy costs have been rising significantly over the last few years. That's one factor. And then the other factor that's important to account for here is that there's increasing interest from different cities and jurisdictions to default opt up their communities and customers to Renewable 100, the latest being Fremont. But Oakland has discussed that. I think other cities have interest as well. And so loads the size of Fremont, for example, are just very significant. And so to opt up all of those customers in a year, 2 years time frame in an elevated pricing environment has more significant impacts on rates and the value proposition. So that's really the biggest impetus for why we're discussing this right now and why it's an important factor. I will note that there's a following item on the agenda specific to the Fremont R100 opt-up, so just flagging that. Let's see, cover all this. Okay, let's move on to the next slide, Adrian, please. I won't spend much time on this, but this is just sort of a basic graphic of those two energy products that we just talked about here. As a basic reminder, renewable energy is tracked via what are called RECs, renewable energy certificates. That's sort of the system within California that we use to account for that. So we'll reference RECs synonymously with renewable energy. Next slide, please. So as I noted, and this is covering a little bit of material on the following Fremont item, so I'll really just kind of gloss through this, but one of the drivers as to why we're discussing this now is because of Fremont's action to want to opt up all of their customers to Renewable 100. If you didn't have significant load changing and opting up to Renewable 100, you're still in an elevated pricing environment, but you've had longer amounts of time to plan for that procurement, and therefore there isn't as much of a material sudden impact to that sort of cost structure. The decision by Fremont to opt up is one of the drivers to make sure that we're considering this item and discussing it. And we will, of course, we are seeking action on this item in the following agenda items, just to discuss the approval of that opt-up decision and discuss sort of the phasing matters. Next slide, Adrian. So slide 6 is just a pie chart breakdown of all of our cities and what energy product they are on. So the dark green is the group of cities that are already on R100, and they were sort of the first tranche that defaulted R100 a few years ago. The light green are also cities that are currently on R100, and they were sort of in a second tranche that elected to default their customers up to R100. Yellow is the load from Fremont. And so if you look at all of that, about half of our load would be on our R100, assuming we approve the Fremont opt-up. This does not include Stockton and Lathrop, nor does it include another agenda topic that we have tonight, which is the expansion to San Joaquin County. So our load is growing. So this isn't perfectly reflective if you account for those pieces, but certainly for our current load that we are serving, this is well representative. Next slide, Adrian. This is just good for context as a reminder in terms of the history of how we've priced Renewable 100. When we launched our operations in 2018, R100 priced at about a penny premium to PG&E. Over time, given our financial surplus, we were able to reduce that first to 3/4 of a cent premium, and then most recently to a 1/4 cent premium, which is where we're at. So we're getting close to parity with PG&E, not quite there yet. Next slide, Adrian, and you can jump to slide 9. This is just a divider slide. So what we're here to really discuss is 3 different pricing or cost allocation methodologies that are important to account for. We've titled them A, B, and C. A is looking at your REC costs on a blended basis, and that is what we have historically done. Renewable energy historically has been priced all kind of clustered within a similar area, regardless of whether you're signing a long-term contract or a short-term contract, and regardless if you needed to make some short-term procurements year to year, the differential in that cost has not been that significant. What has changed is that pricing has increased, and therefore that this approach has a more the other options we have a more meaningful impact. So option B is where you don't blend the REC costs across Bright Choice and R100 evenly, but rather you're accounting for some of the marginal cost allocations, currently the marginal cost being at a higher level than what our historical costs are, which is why this is meaningful. And for option B, at a high level, or what this recommends or proposes is to allocate our historic hedge portfolio, which is generally sort of in the money. Those were procured at lower cost times. You would allocate that proportionally between Bright Choice and R100 based off of the current load. And then as you have additional opt-ups, then you would have more procurements to make for the new opt-ups for R100 that would drive a greater differential in pricing between Bright Choice and R100. And then option C kind of furthers that approach by actually prioritizing Bright Choice target hedge levels. We're not saying just fill them up fully and assume that they get fully hedged at 100%, but rather we establish some hedge targets year to year. And so prioritize filling that up first, and then what is left would then go to R100, and then any incremental procurements at that sort of higher marginal costs would then get kind of spread between the remaining smaller proportion of Bright Choice unhedged portion, and then of course the larger unhedged portion for R100. So those are the 3 methodologies at a high level. We'll talk through some numerical examples to help better illustrate what this means and the implications. A little bit more context, as I've already noted, but just really quick, one of the reasons why this is important is because we are in that rising energy price environment. Historically, RECs have been in that sort of $10 to $15 range. And we're seeing many multiples above that today in the $70 to $80 range for a REC. So that is standalone REC price, not even accounting for sort of brown power that's associated with that. There are a variety of reasons. We've kind of talked about that through various times in different meetings as to why that is. There's increased demand for renewable energy, both from CCAs, from corporates. There continue to be supply chain issues, interconnection issues. So those are significant drivers to that. There are also sort of out-of-state dynamics that are important, where there is less large hydro generally coming into California because of fossil fuel retirements outside of California and increased renewable energy demand outside California. So those are also dynamics that are sort of driving some of this increase in the current elevated prices. It's impossible to know where prices will go tomorrow and years from now, but in general, that sort of upward pressure does not seem to be quickly alleviating. So I don't view this as a very short-term volatility that is just going to come back down, but certainly that is possible, and it's very difficult to predict that with any high degree of certainty. Adrian, you can go next slide, and then oh, sorry, I was just speaking on this slide, so you can go ahead and go past this one. That's a divider slide. So let's go to this slide. So this kind of illustrates the different options that I just spoke to. No certainty on these actual quantifiable levels, but directionally, the option A, B, C has this type of an impact. So, just covering the bullets really quickly. So, for calendar year 2025, the differential between Bright Choice and R100, the rate differential is about 3/4 of a cent, just for context. And of course, as we already know, our current value proposition is a 5% discount to PG&E for Bright Choice, and R100 is at a 1/4 cent premium to PG&E. So when you look at option A, B, C rolled out and sort of incorporated in our rate forecasts, and you look at 2025 and 2026, under option A, that differential is largely maintained because we're blending the rent costs in that scenario. Given elevated prices, you do see that the value proposition's diminished modestly. So Bright Choice is forecasted to be more at a 4% discount as opposed to currently being at a 5% discount. And then R100 pricing the premium does increase modestly. Instead of a 1/4 cent, it's 0.3 cents. And so you maintain that differential, but you're sort of shifting everyone to be a little bit worse off just in light of that rising cost environment. For options B and C, those widen the differential. C more so than B. And that is because, again, at a high level, we're allocating the higher marginal costs in today's priced environment more towards R100. Option C, you allocate even further than option B. So you can see directionally what that does. It increases the differential. So while option A had roughly a 0.75, option B then gets to about a penny differential, and then option C gets to about 1.25 cent differential. So it continues to widen, and then you can see the implication of that on the value proposition. The intent here was to try to find a means to try to maintain the Bright Choice value proposition. So in option B, you have it at 5%, and then R100 premium widens a little further to 0.45 cents. For option C, you can actually, the intention here is to actually try to minimize the Bright Choice cost as much as possible, and then the differential continues to widen. So Bright Choice gets to a 5.5% discount to PG&E. It actually improves a little bit, but obviously the downside of that is R100 increases even further to about 0.65 cents. This is generally indicative. It is reflective of what we estimate for the future, but again, we're going to try to drive these costs down, of course, with good negotiations in our energy hedges, and hopefully these impacts can be muted, but just directionally, given an elevated pricing environment, it's realistic to think that these things, the dynamic is likely to happen, and hopefully we can minimize those impacts. But when you look at options A, B, and C, at least structurally, it's going to still have this type of impact, depending on the methodology that's chosen. And then this is just a projection for 25-26. Obviously, that's near term, 26-27. Assuming you continue to see a rising cost environment, whether that's just maintained at the current elevated prices or even if it increases beyond that, this dynamic will get kind of further exacerbated. Next slide, Adrian, please. Slide 13. So some of the considerations here, obviously increased renewable energy demand at higher prices is going to continue to increase AVA procurement costs. Unfortunately, when you think about structurally where we are relative to PG&E, we have a higher level of renewable energy than PG&E. So as you see this more elevated price environment, a lot of that is actually focused on renewable energy. We've seen brown power specifically a bit more volatile. Hard to say where that's going to go. At least in the first part of this calendar year, we actually have seen some softening of the brown power price. So that's unfortunately structurally puts us at a little bit more of a disadvantage as we're procuring more and more renewable energy. It's difficult to predict whether that will continue. I would suspect we'll continue to see a good deal of volatility on that front. It is unpredictable. Options B and C allow Bright Choice discount to be relatively maintained. And it's also worth calling out options B and C are operationally more intensive and more complicated because as you look at not blending that rec price, but rather differentiating, thinking about where to allocate marginal costs, you need to start accounting for every single contract you sign. How do you allocate that? You know, what proportion goes to R100, what proportion goes to Bright Choice? Those are all doable things. Those are accounting systems that can be absolutely implemented. They have been done by other load serving entities, so not unique in that regard, but you know, we would need time to implement that, make sure we plan ahead and have adequate time to set up the right processes and systems to allow us to do that effectively. And then the last bullet point really, of course, is just simply saying, you know, we're gonna do our best to try and meet those prices. And hopefully this is all a somewhat moot point because we're able to negotiate really effective costs and we don't see that differential as exacerbated as we hope. And we don't see the value proposition impacted in the way that we've illustrated. But, you know, we are seeing that, you know, I think it's important to plan for that increased cost appropriately. Next slide, Adrian. So here I just kind of wanted to summarize a few different, I guess, perspectives on the policy considerations across options A, and A, B, and C. And so in option A, where you maintain a blended rec price, you're minimizing the differential between Bright Choice and R100. And you know, in that sense, you could say maybe we're seeking to incentivize as great participation in R100 by keeping those as close together as possible. That's sort of one approach to that. Option C, where you widen that differential, maybe the intent there is to say we are trying to find a way to minimize Bright Choice for those that have, you know, the greatest affordability challenges. We are at all-time high electricity costs as a whole right now. Affordability is a huge challenge, and so maybe option C is an approach to try to. We're not trying to differentiate to hurt R100, of course, but what we're trying to do is find a product in Bright Choice that can be as low as possible. And so that could be intent of choosing an option more like option C. And option B is maybe you consider that the compromise approach, and it's somewhere that sits a little bit in between option A and C. The last thing I'll just note there is historically AVA has never vintaged different rates for you know, for say R100 customers that may elect to opt up their customers at different times. We have maintained the same value proposition across those jurisdictions. It wasn't a relevant point before because the cost differential didn't really change all that much. And now obviously structurally we're discussing this because those, you know, the cost environment is changing. So we have never vintaged that. We have also never vintaged different members that join at different times to be at different rates either. I just want to call that out. There, you know, a system can be created to do that, of course, but we have elected as a board, I think, not to do that in the past. Next slide, please. One slide, 15. So I just want to touch on this because this came out of the FAT meeting of sort of making some requests for future analysis to continue to make this analysis a little bit more robust for decision-making purposes. And I just want to flag that it's really difficult to continue to forecast what the impact of this will be in future years going even further out than 25, 26, in large part because we don't know what energy prices will be, either brown power or renewable energy costs. So we've done some scenario analysis on that to illustrate the impacts of if you continue to see rising costs increase, you know, what will happen. And you're going to see that structurally, you're going to see that differential continue to widen now. You're going to see that consistent impact. So I wanted to highlight that it's difficult to know with certainty where that would be because that would be based off of knowing where energy prices will be in the future. But you know, you're going to see a similar dynamic if prices do continue to widen out. And then the last point here is just wanted to note that we do anticipate in the coming years a change in the emissions accounting methodology. So right now it's slated for 2028 where we'll switch to a 24/7 emissions basis. I suspect that may get delayed. That is a very complex system that needs to get implemented from a regulatory perspective, but it is absolutely on the horizon. And I just highlight that to say that there are some significant implications of that change in terms of how we measure emissions across both R100 and Bright Choice. When you think about R100 today and your ability to serve that, our ability to serve that is really on a net annual basis. And if you look at it on a 24/7 basis, it's very challenging to serve 24/7 renewable energy when you primarily procurement is solar and wind. It doesn't serve 24/7 renewable energy today. So that's just an implication to sort of put in the back of your mind. Next slide, Adrian. I touched on this briefly already. This is just noting a little bit of feedback that the FAP subcommittee shared as we discussed this just last week. And I think there was a lot of questions, really great dialogue. I think the big feedback with that was, let's have an information item during this meeting. Let's make sure there's enough time to digest this and likely bring this forward for an action in September. So there's adequate discussion. And then there was some discussion, I would say, certainly not unanimous, not strong indication, but there was some indication that there was support for option C as we looked at these three different methodologies. Last slide there, Adrian, slide 17. So what we're specifically doing is just seeking feedback on the cost allocation methodology, what the board members might want to see. We do intend to bring this back in September. The good news is this doesn't have a huge implication for this fiscal year. So there is some time to discuss and consider those implications, which are likely to roll through in the next fiscal year, 25-26. But as I noted, we do need adequate time to implement any operational or process changes if we were to change the cost allocation methodology, which is why we're bringing forward this item now. That's it.
Okay. Well, great to hear about the success of Renewable 100. With that, we'll be going for clarifying questions in the room. Yes, Member Roche.
Thank you. So I'm a little confused because I understood we were going to move this to an informational item, but for me that was hinging on the decision we're going to make on Fremont, because in that next item we are talking about changing the R100 premium, and I agree with you, and I don't think we're interested in vintage rates like for all the different tiers, but I was interested in this because I wasn't ready, I wanted to have this discussion so that we're not committing to what that rate's going to look like on the next. So like, to me, they go hand in hand. So I'm curious why, like how we put this off and yet make a decision to increase potentially the R100 customers.
Yeah, it's a great point and something that we did actually discuss at the FAP subcommittee meeting. I think ideally we did see that these two items kind of going hand in hand made sense. Obviously, the decision here on what cost allocation methodology you use has implications on the pricing structure and can impact the decision around Fremont, both the decision to approve them, but also any decisions on how to phase them. I think with that said, we see it as slightly separate items in the sense that you can approve a Fremont decision to opt up to R100 and discuss a phase, because the prices that are shown there are generally indicative of, regardless of kind of the methodology you choose, directionally those things will still likely happen. And so they're a little bit, I guess the thinking there was it wouldn't necessarily drive a change to how the board would take action on the Fremont decision itself. But then if you make a decision on Fremont, then you can actually take that, and that has implications on doing some further analysis on the cost allocation methodology if you determine what the phasing looks like.
Yep.
So it's a little bit circular in that sense. And there's not a perfect approach to trying to group them or actually separate them for that reason.
Well, yeah, I mean, because I guess I'm happy to make a decision on, of course, like having them come into the R100, but to me, they do go hand in hand because, if we decide on based on like that affects the next decision, that decision. So, yeah, so I guess I just feel comfortable with it, because if we're going to decide, really the only options I think in the Fremont one are to increase. I don't think there is a baseline option from what I'm looking at. So yeah, I guess I'm not sure where I'm heading with this, except that it does affect how we talk about the next item. So I would like to bifurcate the cost part of that and just have the discussion about, I mean, if we can do that, I mean, if there's two parts of that discussion, and then have us decide how we're going to move forward with the R100, going forward, because it does matter. It really matters to Hayward because, we sort of felt like we were pushing our customers to accept a premium to begin with, beyond the PG&E rates. And so it does, so it's a big consideration. And I thought we were going to be able to have a little time to have that discussion based on this discussion.
Maybe one clarification I'll make is the pricing that's shown in the Fremont item is sort of illustrative and indicative, and there's not an approval that we're seeking related to cost setting.
Okay.
Maybe I'm jumping ahead a little bit on the agenda, but that item really is about, do you approve the decision to opt them up? And illustratively, we're trying to show where we think the pricing will go.
Okay.
Any actual pricing changes wouldn't happen until next fiscal year.
Okay, and so we have this discussion.
The actual load that would change to R100 is really happening at the tail end of the fiscal year, so it does not have a material impact on this current budget cycle in this current fiscal year.
Okay, so then when we have this discussion in September, that will absolutely affect like how those R100 customers move forward.
That's correct, but
Okay.
again, for future, neither of these items has an implication on
this fiscal year.
value proposition for this fiscal
Right,
year.
okay. Okay, that's really helpful. Thank you, because I was looking at the table on the next item and realizing that we were looking at different options. Sorry, just one more part. The other thing is, I know everything we do is kind of like based on the PG&E baseline. And I think I've asked this before, and so maybe I can just ask you to clarify again. Are there other community energy groups that don't baseline on PG&E and set their costs in a different way? And is there some future where we're not doing that? Because if we're always, right now, I mean, energy costs are expensive for everyone. So to offer any new premium is a big ask of people. And it's not the direction I think we want to head as an organization. And so just wondering, looking at the future, like what does that look like?
I think that's a very meaty topic to bring forward in the future for discussion. To answer your immediate question, yes, there are some CCAs that don't index directly to the IOU, whether it be PG&E or SCE. I think my understanding is it's 2 or 3 of the 25 plus CCAs that do that. So it is a very small subset of them. And in many cases, and I don't want to say definitively what exactly drove that decision, but in many cases, structurally, they have a different cost structure where there's greater prevalence that they're above the IOU. And that's what's driven actually some of that change in sort of how they structure the rates and what the indexing approach is. I don't know of any CCAs that have elected to not index to the IOU and offer a significant discount to the IOU.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, other additional questions from members in the room? Member Cal.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So and this is all about how much or to what extent we are having our base customers partly a little bit subsidize the cleanest customers. Is that right? Is that what we're talking about? Cross subsidy a little bit?
I don't personally frame it as a subsidy issue. I mean, it's a cost allocation issue. And I think what we're discussing here in terms of different methodologies, I don't view it as in either scenario one customer is subsidizing the other.
I wasn't criticizing that when I brought that up. I'm completely fine with that. I like the idea of people who do not have as much clean energy paying a little, well, not paying more, but helping to subsidize those who are doing the cleanest possible thing, because that's what we all want and need. More than want, we need. So I'm okay with that. So I guess I would, where'd it go? Where'd that chart go again? I'm sorry.
Framing that in a question, then, Member Cal.
I'm sorry?
Framing that in a clarifying question.
As a clarifying question. Okay, my question is, are we going to be asked to make a decision on changing the allocation methodology sometime next month or two for the next fiscal year?
The intention was to seek action from the board in September on selecting a cost allocation methodology. And we would then go implement that methodology, which, as I noted, wouldn't really have any impact on this fiscal year. It really starts to have an impact on the next fiscal year. So we would bring forward any actual implications of that from a value proposition rate setting perspective in the next budget cycle. as we always do.
Okay, so then my question or request is in the staff report, that you also identify, because the cost of something has an impact on who does it, and what the environmental value is, that you analyze the best you can what the the comparative environmental values are, climate values are to the different options that we have, that you will have before us. Not just the value of the financial value proposition, but the environmental value of proposition as well. Does that make sense?
Not entirely. What do you mean by that?
Different cost allocation methodology, like these options you just presented, can lead to, economists might suggest, to more people or fewer people going for a renewable 100, and therefore that our total portfolio would be somewhat cleaner or a little bit less clean, depending on how many people we have sign up. So there is an environmental impact to the rate structure, to the methodology we select. I'd like that to be discussed in your staff report.
And are you are you asking for, if we were to change across these different cost allocation methodologies, or try to predict what the opt-down decisions may be associated with that because of the pricing implication? Or
Yeah, I mean, I know it's hard, but economists say every monetary change has an impact in decisions. So I would say that we're no different. And so if there's some environmental benefit or comparative benefit, I would like us to have some best guess at that, or at least if not a quantitative, at least a qualitative discussion that will help shed light on that.
Yeah, we can certainly try to do some analysis there. I think what I'll point to is it's difficult to know if R100 has a 0.25 cent premium versus a 0.65 cent premium, what percentage of our customers will opt down. We could do some scenario analysis there. I think it's difficult to know with certainty what is sort of the price elasticity that customers have for that product.
I understand.
But I understand the point now. Okay.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Thank you.
Any additional clarifying questions by members in the room? Supervisor.
Thank you, Chair. So one question I have is, for clarity, I understood that when we make a decision on this, it would not go into effect until July 1st. Is that correct?
Until next
Next
fiscal
fiscal year,
yeah,
July
that's
1st.
correct.
Okay. And so can you speak to the outreach plan to educate our customers? Should we move forward with option B or C? Have we given any thought of how we would inform them, what that would look like? To piggyback on Member Kalb's comments, I'm just worried about the opt-out rate versus opt-down rate. So have we given any thought around that?
Yeah, and we have fairly standard procedures around how we notify customers around any city sort of default changes to energy products. So if a city defaults to R100, there's adequate mailers, notifiers that let them know. I think historically we've seen that there are an increased percentage of customers that make a decision to opt down, which is encouraging. It is still a relatively small percentage of overall customers that are, of customers that are changed that actually make an explicit decision, whether that be the opt down or the opt out. But it is significantly more elect to opt down as opposed to opt out. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. And that's kind of like the data points I'd be curious in reviewing. And then do we know if we made no changes, what would it cost us to bring on Fremont or potentially Oakland, having them opt up to Renewable 100 and we kept the current value proposition? What would that look like?
From a financial impact perspective, we don't know yet. So I think one of the reasons why we are seeking direction on the methodology first is then you can incorporate the methodology. And as we do every year, we would forecast based off where rates and costs are with a little bit more certainty as we approach a fiscal year, and then be able to propose based off of a more accurate estimate of what that financial surplus or whatever the financial budget would look like, and then make a recommendation on where to set the value proposition as a result of that. It's certainly possible that you could choose a methodology here that maybe seeks to differentiate further, but we are able to negotiate more effective contracts and we're able to bring forward a recommendation next year that doesn't increase prices for anyone. And that's certainly our hope. And that would always, of course, be brought forward to the board as part of the discussion with the budget itself. And with that, there would be, and if that weren't the case and costs increased, and there was that pressure on the value proposition, of course, the board has a decision to make on if we want to allocate less to reserves, if we don't want to allocate anything to reserves, or different areas of funding to make adjustments there as well. So there certainly are different levers to pull to mute these impacts in various ways, but it's hard to predict, given where we stand today, what that scenario will look like exactly.
Okay. So my request is when this comes back that we vet all possible options, just to have a clear picture of what we should be taking into consideration, because I won't make comments, I'll just stick to questions, I'll have comments later. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. San Leandro?
So my questions start with renewable energy credits or the certificates. So you mentioned that they may be priced separately from the energy. So I'm assuming that means that there's a market for these certificates. Is there a forward curve?
Yes. I would take it with a grain of salt, but there's always a forward projection on where things go. They're rarely really accurate, but of course you have to take a view on things, and that's sort of how you model and analyze.
And what are those markets suggesting about the price in 3-5 years?
I'd have to revisit that, but generally speaking, forward curves usually look at where kind of the spot market is, so over the course of the next year or so, and then gradually decrease that in future years. So, over the next year, I'm going to ballpark and say it's in that $70, $80 range, drop down to maybe $50, $60, $40, kind of on forward. Yeah.
And so what I think it suggests is that short-term demand is outpacing the long-term construction. So we have lots of projects that are coming online, or that will be coming online, but they just aren't generating the power yet. The REC pricing, today's REC price, reflects the availability of delivered power today. Has nothing to do with what's being built and what will be built and all that kind of stuff.
That's correct.
That's fair. Okay. This is going out there a little bit, but if we build our own project, help me think about what that means for the value of that, of how we price it, how we think about that energy, because we build it, we have the certificate ourselves. Is it still, we still think about it the same way because there's an opportunity cost of selling that certificate?
I think so. It's a commodity price at the end of the day, and Brown Power has a very formal clearing process with CAISO markets, and then REC costs as well. While there's less liquidity in that product and probably harder to predict, future pricing levels, there's not as much of a sort of a clearing market. There absolutely is still distinct market pricing.
One more question with respect to battery storage. One of the things that we see a lot more of is battery storage projects. Help me think through that, all else being equal. If we had a significant increase in battery storage projects, no change in solar farms or wind farms or anything, just battery. What does that do to RECs?
It doesn't technically, at least for our portfolio, it does not increase any of the renewable energy that we're getting, because battery storage have to get charged from something and then you discharge that. So it is primarily a sort of a financial hedge that you have. If you pair it directly with a solar project, it helps you hedge the financial value of that solar project, but you do also get the REC. That's what you're charging it with. Then when it discharges, you also have that REC. So you maintain that, but it's not additive. If anything, it actually is slight degradation of that, because there are sort of line losses that occur when you charge and discharge. And then you could even, in slightly more complicated fashion, if it's a standalone battery storage project that isn't paired with solar, you can, within your portfolio, potentially still use it as a hedging mechanism for a specific solar project and still get some potential rec benefit. But that's a little bit more complicated in terms of how you structure. So I'll just sort of at least reference that. There's other ways to kind of try to maximize that value, but generally speaking, it's not really providing additive from a renewable energy perspective.
Okay, two last questions. Have we run scenarios or calculations for, let's say, scenario A versus scenario C, what the difference in the utility bill would be for consumers?
Oh, sorry. Sorry, could you repeat that question?
Yeah, so just, I'll make it really simple. There's a customer, and all of a sudden there's a change from our current state to option A or option C, right? What would be the impact to the customer's utility bill? So I think a lot of times we talk about percentages and quarter cents and blah, 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 but in the end, perhaps being able to frame it as a per month impact, right?
Yeah.
And I'm just wondering, so it seems like a comment, but it really is a question. Have we done that analysis?
Yes, we have done that analysis. I would just point that option A is generally maintaining the current sort of status quo methodology. So that in and of itself shouldn't structurally change what happens there. There is, of course, year-to-year volatility based off where energy prices are. So that's not to say that energy prices won't change. We see them then change quite readily. But the approach and the structure that we have for allocating, different energy costs across the portfolio is not changing under option A. Option B and C differentiates and widens that a little bit. So, the value proposition is kind of what I would point to in terms of the implication on the electricity rate. I think I understand your point, which is at the end of the day, what are the overall levels, whether it be T&D charges or electricity charges, regardless of that. And what we're trying to do here is isolate this structural cost impact on the RECs themselves. So all else being equal, this is the impact that you see. But other electricity prices could go up or down. So it could go either direction, to be frank.
Okay. Yeah. That's it for right now. Thank you.
Okay. Any additional questions by members in the room? Thank you for your patience, members online. Member Cox, I see you have a question.
Thank you. One of the things that would be really helpful is when you're on that slide 12 and it talks about all the cost differentials, it would really help if you even show like what would be the impact if it's phased in. Are you phasing in 50%, 70%? To kind of get an idea, because this is, it's helpful, but then we don't really see the full impact in addition to some of the other board members' comments. But I just think that we need a little bit more information to understand if we're going to go in on a phased in and how many, just some sort of estimated number would be helpful to see what this would look like for the R100 and what would be kind of the layout as you kind of use some of these numbers here. It's just a little bit on the theory side that I just don't see the full impact. And if we're doing residential first, which has been talked about in the report, and then doing phase 2 of non-residential to kind of add the numbers in there, if there's some way we can kind of grasp that. It's kind of hard to kind of make some decisions on just some a set discount number and the cost of the R11 versus the Bright Choice, but it just would add a little bit more meaning as we're trying to make that final decision on the cost modeling by September. Is that something that you could be able to do?
Absolutely. We have all those numbers. We were intentional actually in not doing that here and deferring that item really to the Fremont agenda item. And what this does is it speaks to sort of the structure of it. And I intentionally basically averaged whether you phase it or you don't phase it. The implication is still the same. So for example, If you look at option B, where it's roughly a penny cost differential, what I would say is if you were to not phase it and do it all in 2025, you're going to be maybe slightly above a penny. Maybe it's, you know, a 1.1 penny. And if you phased it, maybe it's more like 0.9 cents. So we intentionally try to just sort of average that a little bit here to simplify it for this, because structurally it still has the same impact. And we're not asking for any guidance here, at least as it relates to phasing or not phasing. That's really on the Fremont topic. So we try to separate it intentionally.
Oh, I see. Okay. I guess those would be to continue on the next agenda item then.
Adrian, do you mind stopping the share? Okay. Are there any additional members online that have any additional clarifying questions at this time before I open it up to the public? Okay, I'll just ask staff if I may. So have you considered the opt-down incentive? I've talked to staff offline about Pleasanton had considered opting down for budgetary concerns, which would be interesting. So when staff did this analysis of the spread on B and C, was that something in the factor that you considered? And I think it's along Member Kalb's overall comment.
Can I just clarify, your point is if the premium rises, the differential rises, there could be an increasing number of customers that elect to opt down, and does that mute the impact here?
Correct.
Yeah. So we've thought about that. I think there's probably a little bit more analysis and sort of scenario work that we can do to sort of see how much that's muted. You'll still see directionally the same impacts across A, B, and C, but that would be an offsetting factor because it's less incremental procurements that you would need to do. So even if you chose option C to, which would likely increase the differential, you're going to have slightly less load if there was any material opt downs as a result of that decision, and therefore, it still would be more than an option A, but but it's going to slightly offset that because you're going to have less load actually on R100, therefore less marginal costs.
Yeah, but I'm saying if a municipality moved to opt down, that is a significant load change, right? I mean, that's the Fremont option the other way. So could we be incentivizing municipalities and budget constraints to opt down? So, okay, so something for the analysis.
Yep.
And then just to make sure, I think I'm summarizing this correctly, but just to make sure my understanding in light of San Leandro comment, right? The rush to R100 or just the short-term success of Renewable 100 is basically making it more expensive, but dirtier power is basically cheaper, right? That's our challenge.
It is, at least just in the last 6 months, it's gone down below what it was forecasted to be.
Right.
But I wouldn't characterize brown power as cheaper now than it was a few years ago. Everything's
relative, all
Yeah.
relative. Okay. With no additional clarifying questions by members, I will open it up to public comment at this time. So must be present to win. So in the room, if you would like to speak on this item, please approach the podium, and then you can turn a speaker card in later if you haven't. Yeah, Adrian, are you ready? Sure. Okay.
Jessica Tovar with Local Clean Energy Alliance brought this up at the Community Advisory Committee, just really wanting to emphasize that the whole point of the local development business plan investment in more local development, and that actually was part of the marketing of Renewable 100, that paying a premium price would have the agency invest more in local. And when you actually invest more in the local production of clean energy, be it like solar kind of parking covers throughout the city or on our municipal buildings, you can actually rely less on the market and there's less volatility in the price. And at the same time, you can generate more wealth for the local municipalities, and in taking it a step further, doing that for community as well. And noting there's like opportunities in the local development business plan for like feed-in tariff, for example. And I know that even when this agency first started, City of Hayward wanted to negotiate a feed-in tariff to be able to sell the energy that it produces from its solar panels in the city, sell it to the agency so that we can produce localized power, and then the city can make some money in doing so. And I really want to like reground that, because we need to revisit this whole picture and what it could look like so that we can actually transform our communities and create more localized clean energy that is, you know, price stable in comparison, and it's less having to buy and depend on the market. Market's always volatile. Your bills always go up. Very rarely do they go down. And then in considering, you know, well, I'll speak in the next item. Thank you.
Okay, any additional speakers in the room? Seeing none online?
There are no hands raised. Oh, there is one hand raised. Igor Trega, recognized for 2 minutes.
Yeah, apologies again for the unorthodox nature of how I have to provide my questions via public comment. So I understand if that can't be answered tonight, but I wanted to ask a couple of questions. One, as part of the REC discussion, I would be curious what the mix of bundled versus unbundled RECs are, if any, and if there is, what the cost implications are around that. I was also curious, and this is kind of to Director Kalb's point, if there may be a way to, without further introducing complexity or undue complexity, to account for the avoided costs associated with local renewables in the energy mix. So further calling out the benefits that are under consideration by the CPUC in certain proceedings around specifically the local distributed energy resources that may be under consideration under the 100% renewable alternatives. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
There are no further hands raised at this time.
Okay, I'll close the public comment period. And I think Berkeley's comments probably, maybe I'll just go a little bit on Chair's prerogative here, but I think overall, probably from member comments that I'm assimilating, we probably need some additional analysis and some additional thought process around this, it sounds like. So with that, we'll open it up for member comments. Let me start with the CAC. Did the CAC have an item on this for us?
We did not cover this item. It was mentioned it was going to be discussed before, and it was up to the CAC to review it. But there were comments about which they had seen more of this dialogue, but we just jumped over to the Fremont item.
Okay. So with that, for member comments or deliberations for members in the room, any comments on this item? I know we kind of did a little bit, but any additional at this time? Yeah, Hayward.
Just one to Director Marquez's point about sort of what the value is of adding more, you know, cities, Fremont and maybe Oakland later, you know, because if we're making, you know, some sort of like analysis of what the R100 fee should be, I mean, I assume we do have to look at what is that total cost so that we know, like, can we absorb that in our reserves on a given year or not? So like, is that way out of the scope, or do we have to consider that, you know, the cost to procure is just going to be so high that we have to add this premium? So I think I would like to know like what the actual value of that would be. I mean, maybe we have to look at that in this year's dollars. I don't know. I don't know how you do that, but I would like to see that as part of the next iteration we talk about it next.
And maybe one point I could just make on that is we've tried to show some illustrative numbers to show, at least given where we see pricing today in the very short term, what the implication of these methodologies would be. I should highlight that if prices were to go down, it would have a very different impact. You could say if a jurisdiction wanted to opt up because renewable pricing dropped, you know, dramatically in a year, you know, and you chose option C and said, well, that marginal cost goes to the, you know, the R100 as a decision, as a rate product. You could see the differentiation actually shrink. So it's not necessarily that the methodologies will will structurally cause these changes in all, in all future years. It's just in the short-term pricing environment, that's the implication.
Yeah, I think what I'm thinking is, remember when we looked at the budget, projection, you did give us, or, the staff report gave us an actual dollar amount of what it would cost to leave the Renewable 100 at a quarter, or what it would, what that impact was. And I think that's the number I'm looking for. Like, what is that actual cost to our budget? And just to see, like, can we absorb that in our, what our reserves are? So I would like to see that. So,
sure,
thanks.
absolutely, we can do that.
Okay. Any additional member comments from members in the room? Yeah, San Leandro.
So I think that I agree with all discussions about dollars as opposed to percentages or cents. What's the total dollar impact? Both on a typical customer, and you can give us 3 or 4 different types of customers, but as well as the overall impact on our budget. I do think that there's at least some value in looking at the forward curves, kind of what the financial markets are telling us. There are contracts being bought and sold, and people are speculating. And people can be wrong, but oftentimes we say, let's look at the market. What does the market tell us? And I think we can fully appreciate and should fully appreciate that those markets can be thinly traded, potentially subject to manipulation. I think just coming to us with as much information as you can helps guide us. I do think that we need to be very sensitive to anything that looks like cross-subsidization for social objectives. I am particularly concerned by the risk that poorer cities or counties might pay so that others achieve their social objectives. And I say this in particular because I know that we are taking on a number of Central Valley cities, counties, and the like, where the residents in general tend to have a bit lower income than they do in the Bay Area. And so I think we need to be very sensitive to how we couch R100 potentially being subsidized by Bright Choice. I totally get that we want to be protecting the environment. The primary objective, as I've understood it, is to drive decarbonization. And we, as members of this agency, represent individuals that are in different economic strata. And I think we need to be sensitive to it. We talk about economic justice and all this kind of stuff, but when it actually comes to people paying their bills, that's where real economic justice gets measured. And so let's keep that in mind as we talk about the theory of what would be good.
Okay. Any additional member comments by members in the room at this time? Yeah, Member Tiedemann.
Thank you, and thank you to staff for all the work you've done on this and all the work you will be doing to get all the information that our board members have requested. I know there's a lot of interest in this item, and I appreciate the discussion on it. Just one note on this. I think there's a lot to still discuss here. I know that in the presentation you mentioned some possibility of Renewable 100 vintaging, which I'm very wary of, as it seems a good way to make the incentive structure of what we want to do get very complicated very quickly, and get very confusing of if we are punishing people for switching to Renewable 100 later or punishing them for switching to it earlier. Neither one seemed really great to me. That's one I would be happy to see more detail about when we come back and discuss it, but doesn't seem like a great way to go. But again, I'll be interested to see what we keep discussing us in the next round.
Okay. Going to members online at this time, members virtual, are there any additional comments you would like to make at this time? I've waited the appropriate amount of time. Please, yes, Hayward.
Sorry. I'm also curious, we have a goal to get Bright Choice to renewable by 2030. And when we add, well, I guess Fremont, they're already customers, we're talking about R100, but when we add the Valley, if some of the Valley communities come aboard. What does that do to, as we add sort of more customers, what does that do? Does that extend our 2030 goal out? Then, maybe you can sort of include that in that next discussion, just as far as what does that do then to the rates? Does that affect the rates at all as we add more load and we have to look at what that goal looks like? So, thank you. Thanks.
Okay. I'll just add mine if I may. I really appreciate the discussion about this. Pleasanton did, just to be for full disclosure, did have to consider evaluating to drop down to Bright Choice for budgetary purposes. It was a full discussion item. I'm happy to say we had a 5-0 vote to maintain Renewable 100 as our default choice for us as a municipality. But that conversation, I think, is not going to be so unique in the future as our cities see it. If we do see a slowing in the economy in the next year, we already know, I know that my constituents are very worried about price right now of electricity, and we're having a significant challenge with reliability, which I know is not necessarily Ava's bailiwick. But as those challenges present themselves, I think we should be very aware of all of the discussion items brought up here and how we price this. This is not, to me, this is a significant issue. This is how we're serving our objectives as a group. I do think opt-down is a risk. If we worry is that's a risk, is it renewable or is it decarbonization? And I don't know that answer. I think it's a balance, but I think we've got to be very transparent in what we choose. I am interested that we price to PG&E for the revenue side, the cost to our customers, but yet we're very, very cost sensitive or tracking costs on the expense side. And so why is the expense side based on cost, whereas revenue is based on a price? So are we going to a cost-based structure, or we're trying to split the baby? So I think staff has done an excellent job in the past, kind of putting their head together and coming up with a lot of ideas based on the discussion we brought up. And I think that this will just need some additional brain trust to come up with some suggestions and solutions. Anything else before I close out this item? Seeing none? Okay, thank you very much. That's item 15. Everyone okay? Keep going. We're 2 hours in. Okay, so with that, we'll go with item number 16. Fremont Renewable 100 default request. This is an action item for our board members here today, and welcome. Alex, thank you.
Good evening, Chair Balch, members of the board, members of the public. Alex DeGiorgio, Senior Manager of Public Engagement. Yes, here for the sequel to the previous item. So yes, the City of Fremont's citywide default to Renewable 100 request. Adrian, if you wouldn't mind, thank you. So just a quick outline of what we'll cover here. We'll try to be as quick as possible while giving time for all the pertinent information. We'll start out with some background regarding Renewable 100 citywide defaults, provide a bit more context of the City of Fremont's recent action and request, and then we'll provide a recommendation and next steps. And to be sure not to bury the lead here, the recommendation from staff will be to approve the City of Fremont's request, and as a second part, specifically to provide feedback and direction on the timeline for implementation. Because as we'll get to, the City of Fremont's action actually provided for more than one possible path of implementation as far as timing goes. Next slide, please. Thank you, Adrian. For background, the board passed a policy to approving potential community-wide defaults to Renewable 100 in 2021. And this was inspired by a lot of interest by numerous jurisdictions at the time that were interested in exploring citywide defaults to Renewable 100. The City of Dublin was the first to take action at that time, but for historical record, the City of Piedmont actually defaulted residential customers to Renewable 100 at their initial launch of service back in 2018. Since that time and since the passage of the policy, we've had 7 jurisdictions over the course of 2021 and 2022 that took action in this regard. And we'll cover some of the details there in the following slides. But currently, about a third of the agency's load is on Renewable 100. That will drop a little to about a quarter once we begin service to Stockton and Lathrop next year. And again, not to hide the lead here, but Fremont would be by far the largest jurisdiction in terms of both load and customers to default to Renewable 100 should the board approve it. So when it comes to timing, that's really the key here that we're seeking direction from the board. As part of the City Council's resolution that was passed unanimously last month, they approved more than one potential timeline as a way to help us mitigate the cost impacts that you were just discussing with the previous item. And so that would be potentially either a single enrollment occurring in 2025 or a phased sequential enrollment, for example, of residential customers in 2025 and then commercial customers in 2026. And the policy that we're discussing here does have a provision that allows for staff and the CEO to coordinate with the member jurisdiction to adjust the timeline, but we are here to seek feedback and direction from your board on this question of timing. Next slide, please. So this table summarizes the jurisdictions that have taken some sort of default action towards Renewable 100. And so it represents 8 cities altogether if you include the city of Piedmont, which took that action initially. A couple of noteworthy aspects of this: customers on CARE, FARA, Medical Baseline, these low-income discount programs, they are all currently still defaulting to Bright Choice, to the discounted option. And that's true in all jurisdictions.
I'm sorry, may I interrupt?
Sure.
Could you just read the headers for columns 4 and 5?
Could you repeat that?
The column headers for columns 4 and 5 are hidden. If you don't mind just walking us through to the right of commercial.
Oh, I see. Yes. So yes. So that would be municipal is the second to last column there on the right, excuse me. And then the column furthest to the right is CARE, customers on CARE, FARA, and Medical Baseline discount programs.
Thank you so much.
Yes, and on that point, municipal accounts of your jurisdictions, they can request to opt up or to choose Bright Choice at any time. It doesn't necessarily require action by the council, although it can. That just depends on each jurisdiction's preference. But for our agency's purpose, those selections can be made like any other customer account. Next slide, please. So in terms of timing, a little more than half of the cities to date that have taken the step to default to Renewable 100 have done so all at once, while a little less than half have done so through a phased enrollment, typically beginning with residential customers and then following with commercial customers. Now, these occurred at a time in a couple of years ago when energy markets were in a different place. So I just want to make sure that historical context is noted here. But it is worth mentioning that almost half the jurisdictions have chosen the phased approach for various reasons. Next slide, please. So in terms of Fremont, the context here is somewhat unique, both in terms of timing, as we've been discussing, and where energy markets are, but also in terms of the load. Fremont is among the top 3 largest jurisdictions in terms of load and customers served within the agency. Currently represents about 17% of the load, which is a great thing in terms of the GHG reductions, the emissions reductions that could be achieved through an action like this. So according to the City of Fremont's Climate Action Plan, defaulting to Renewable 100 would address approximately 18% of the city's GHG emissions, as spelled out in their Climate Action Plan, and that is inclusive of customers who may opt out or opt down. And by the way, to the question of the kind of difference there, and there was a question at the Community Advisory Committee about this too, in the previous default enrollments to Renewable 100 that those other jurisdictions have taken, typically the percentage that we've seen of customers opting out is, I would say, almost negligible. It's maybe a fraction of a percent. However, the percentage of customers that are choosing Bright Choice is more meaningful. It's been anywhere from about 4 to 6% perhaps. And that's a really important number to hone in on because it validates that our outreach is successful, that there are people who are taking action, that they're receiving the information and they know how to take action and choose the option that's best for them. So we like seeing it when people take that kind of step. One little wrinkle here, just again for context, the policy to allow jurisdictions to default to Renewable 100 does require typically that those decisions be made by a city council or county board of supervisors by the end of May. We have requested, again, and consistent with the policy, that this be adjusted for Fremont due to Fremont's size and the state of the energy markets. Our staff requested a little extra time to conduct some analyses here, and the city of Fremont was exceptionally accommodating with that. So that's why this item is still coming before you, despite the typical deadline of May 31st for these types of actions. Next slide, please. Thank you, Adrian. Okay, so in terms of size, this is some important context here, given Fremont's load and how much larger it is than previous jurisdictions that have taken these actions. So Fremont's load is nearly double the size of the largest jurisdiction that has ever defaulted to Renewable 100, which the proud distinction there goes to the city of Hayward. It's nearly triple the size of the next largest city, which would be San Leandro. And it's nearly the same size as all other jurisdictions that have done this before. So really trying to emphasize why we're taking such care in doing the analyses around cost, and as we will also do when it comes to community outreach, should your board approve this. Next slide, please. So again, these numbers, as Howard indicated earlier, are illustrative. So they are really here to help digest the difference in cost impacts between an enrollment timeline that would be one fell swoop, say in 2025, both residential and commercial customers, versus a phased enrollment that sequences first perhaps residential customers and then commercial customers. So as you can see, the sequenced phased approach does mitigate the cost impacts. Now, again, what those actual cost impacts will be determined by the course the board chooses, future analyses, and markets at the time of procurement. But here you have a sense of really the impact of the enrollment timeline itself. I know that those percentages look big and maybe a little bit scary, but to contextualize that, the current premium for Renewable 100 is 1/4 penny per kilowatt hour. So even if you double that, you're still talking about 1/2 penny per kilowatt hour, which by historical standards is still less than what the premium has been in the past when it was a full penny per kilowatt hour before. And also want to note that even though this talks a lot about Fremont, we are talking about all customers on Renewable 100 currently. So any changes to the Renewable 100 rate would affect customers in all jurisdictions that have chosen it, and then of course those 8 jurisdictions that have defaulted to it, which I think the board understands that quite well at this point. Next slide, please. So again, the recommendation for the board is to approve Fremont's request to default customers to Renewable 100 and to provide direction with the implementation timeline. Specifically, the two potential tracks of either a single enrollment all at once, all customers, and that would be most likely in the spring of 2025, or a phased enrollment over the course of 2025 and 2026. And adjustments can be made to this, again, consistent with the policy and the resolution before you. And I believe that's the last slide. So thank you so much, Adrian, for rolling through those for us, and be happy to take questions.
Okay, thank you very much. So similar to the last item, we'll go with clarifying questions by members of the board in the room. So with that, Hayward, just like last
Thanks.
item.
Just obviously interested in this topic. What is the percentage of the residential versus commercial?
In Fremont?
Yes.
Yes, in Fremont's somewhat unique in this respect, I think. Fremont has a larger load of commercial. Commercial
Okay.
is larger than the residential load. I think it's 70-30.
Okay.
That sound about right?
So commercial 70, then, okay,
Yeah, so-
okay.
By load, yeah.
Okay.
By customer accounts, they're gonna be more residential customers than
Okay.
commercial customers.
Okay. And then it does, you know, if we were to phase, then what does that do to our procurement decisions going forward? You know, if that, does that give a time to absorb this, you know, as opposed to just, you know, like you said, I mean, this is double than any, you know, like takes on a huge load compared to what we've done before. Does this change our procurement decisions and allow us to absorb, you know, each phase, you know, along the way?
I think that would probably suggest that phasing it would be a wise approach, given that it could help mitigate some of the cost impacts if you were to phase in the commercial customers, you know, in 2026.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Okay, any additional questions by members in the room at this time? Yep, hey, sorry, Alameda?
Thank you, Chair. So I appreciate Fremont's flexibility with this and obviously the unanimous vote to default to Renewable 100. Was there a preference if we do select the phase approach, whether or not we start with commercial versus residential? Do they state a preference?
You know, I don't recall the city council stating a preference for, there were some council members who stated a preference for phasing. I don't recall if they stated a preference for which account types to phase. I think traditionally or historically, we've done residential customers first, but we do have Councilmember Cox here as well to speak on that.
Perfect. And I was going to ask that question as well. My memory is that other municipalities led with residential first, and that is accurate. Okay, thank you.
Just very quickly, I'll call them industrial customers. Are all industrials carved out separately? Are they part of what we call commercial? Help me understand that demarcation.
Yes, sure. When I reference commercial, I intend to reference commercial and industrial. And to be even clear about it, really what I'm referencing is all non-residential customers. So it would also include municipal accounts and agricultural accounts. Thank you.
Okay, any additional questions by members in the room? Hayward?
Sorry, one more.
Second bite.
You know, I was just curious, kind of to Dr. Cobb's point earlier, is there some value for, like, I assume, you know, we all want to move to R100 because that does help our climate goals, right? So like in our climate action plans, we can now say, you know, there's less, you know, we're decarbonizing our city. So is there some value, like, have you guys done, has Ava and staff done research on what that value is, like, by having climate action plan that includes this, you know, reduction in greenhouse gases? Is there some value from the state, you know, in grants or more funding that they get? I mean, is there some kind of connection there that, you know, that sort of helps us sort of understand the value of moving more and more people to R100?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm not sure about state grants and things of that sort, but certainly we'd be achieving what some of the goals laid out in the recitals of our joint powers agreement. I know that doesn't necessarily have a financial or a tangible value necessarily, but it certainly gets to meeting the mission of the agency. Sure. In terms of other, I mean, I'd have to defer to others if there are like revenue related things.
Yeah, I mean, from an AVA agency perspective, there's not some additional funding source or grants that we can do to support that. I can't speak to whether cities, if they attain climate action goals that are more ambitious, is there some type of funding? That
I guess that's fine.
I would guess no, just because I haven't heard of it, but to be candid, I have not.
That's okay. Yeah.
Okay. Members, virtual? Yeah, Member Cox.
Thank you so much. I first wanted to thank, on behalf of the city of Fremont, we really want to thank our Fremont city staff working collaboratively with our AVA staff. This has been going on for more than a year to plan for Fremont's change in default. And I was, of course, overjoyed during our council meeting last month that there was unanimously approved to move to the R100 default. We were kind of taking it as an option to see what would be the best for everyone. We didn't really specify, except we were going to go to the default and then leave it up to the board to decide if it was going to be phased in or all at once. But I also putting aside, even though I'm representing the city on this board, I really got to be a little bit sensitive, and I really appreciate my colleague from San Leandro when we're talking about social justice and environmental justice with all of you on the board, that we've got to kind of be sensitive because there's a lot of changes that have occurred over the time that we've all approved our climate action plan, and the economy and those that have lost jobs and are, going through some life changes that we really got to phase to see how we could still keep the environmental climate action moving forward, but not hurt so much on the pocket that's in the back of paying for a transition to go through this default. And based on what I'm seeing on the numbers of the residential monthly premium, if we phase in the residential in 2025 and then do the commercial in 2026, that's a little bit of being a sensitivity to those living in some changing conditions right now. And so I would just like to add that piece of sensitivity in all kind of fronts of trying to make it more equitable as we're moving towards environmental impact, going to the default of the R100, but also being a little sensitive on the price premium that would be a less of a impact to those that wanted to keep in their environmental initiatives. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Any additional clarifying questions by any additional members online or in the room? All right, seeing none, we'll be proceeding to public comment at this time. Open it up for public comment. If there's anyone from the public that would like to speak on this matter in the room, please approach the podium at this time and fill out a speaker card later, please. Thank you.
Hi, Jessica Tovar, Local Clean Energy Alliance again. And well, if you didn't know, there didn't used to be a Renewable 100. I wonder how you all decided to get that. Well, it was because of advocacy by the Local Clean Energy Alliance and members, noting that there was a demand actually for 100% renewable option. But one thing to say about that, I do want to add that the reason why I've been advocating for more of a debt relief, like organized debt relief program, and being that it be ongoing, is because a lot of folks who qualify for CARE and FARA medical baseline programs are actually not enrolled. And it's because, a lot of folks don't know what's available to them and need help facilitating, getting them enrolled into the program. And some organizations that we partner with actually do a lot of trainings of community leaders to be able to help other community people to enroll in the programs and understand what kind of debt relief programs are available to them. I know that you mentioned some of them earlier today, Howard, but I think a more coordinated program would be very helpful to bring residents who are actually not enrolled but qualify and keep them in the programs, and also keep them being able to have access to the programs that would prevent them from being disconnected. And so we really would like to see more of that. And we think that the program that was done in 2001 was really great. And that should be something that is continually offered to address that issue, because the debt issue it's never going to go away as long as we're having to pay for energy. So I do want to be sensitive to those communities. The other thing to say is really, again, emphasis on the local development and relying less on this market purchase, and doing those investments for the long term would be important. Thank you.
Okay. Any additional members from the public in the room that would like to speak on this item at this time? Please approach the podium. Seeing none, any public comment virtually?
There are no hands raised at this time.
Okay, we'll close that public comment and bring it back to the board for deliberations, comments, and discussion.
I would like to make a motion.
Please.
I would like to move that we accept the staff report, and in terms of implementing the Renewable 100 for the city of Fremont in a phased approach, that we do residential in 2025 and commercial in 2026.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
I will second the motion.
I think I had the second from Alameda County. Sorry, trying to judge it all. Sorry, Newark. CAC, I apologize, yes. Did the CAC discuss this or have any comments on this as we bring deliberations here?
Of course, thank you very much. The CAC supports the inclusion of Fremont, where AVA staff in Fremont should align on best implementation or that phasing. Encourages the board staff towards aggressive legislative and regulatory actions to reduce what they've discussed, reduce connectivity delays and impediments and lowering energy costs. There was a lot of feedback in regards to the connectivity concerns delaying and therefore increasing costs or other impediments that would lower those energy costs. You would think that through more demand, eventually you have supply costs will go down. So I think there's more of a push through one of the members and the CAC to really look how can we impact reducing costs or energy costs through any legislative or regulatory actions. And then furthering are the Local Clean Energy Alliance's comments about exploring debt relief program like AVA did or East Bay Community Energy did around the COVID debt relief program to cover customer energy bill relief on the current escalating costs. So again, working aggressively to reduce those costs, finding ways to help our most vulnerable populations, and aligning best on the implementation. That was the feedback from the CAC. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have a motion and a second, but I know we haven't had any additional comments by members. Are there any additional comments by members in the room at this time related to this item? Yes, Hayward.
Thanks. Yeah, I just wanted to appreciate Fremont for being sensitive to the phasing and, how that, might be a little bit easier on everybody's pocketbook if we phase that way. So thanks for being considerate of that. And I just want to reiterate that, or I just want to ask again that these are sort of just illustrative of what it might cost, but we're having the conversation about what our R100 premium will be later down the road. Sorry, I just want to confirm that. Okay, yeah, and thanks again.
Okay.
And I support the motion.
Member Gonzalez.
Just very quickly, I have done some analysis and I do think that the potential increase is relatively small to the total bill. So I think that will be really important to come back with and help people understand that context.
Okay, any additional comments by members in the room at this time? Seeing none, any additional comments by members online, virtual at this time? Okay, I'll just add that I appreciate also Fremont's flexibility, price sensitivity right now related to energy costs overall. I think it's affecting all of our constituents and our community. And so as AVA looks to expand, broaden, and do this price procurement in the future for Renewable 100, I know is on top of mind for our staff to try to obviously be very price sensitive for our customers. So thank you very much. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Please take a roll call vote.
Thank you. Alameda County.
Aye.
Dublin.
Aye.
Emeryville.
Aye.
Fremont.
Aye.
Hayward.
Aye.
Lathrop.
Aye.
Newark.
Yes.
Oakland.
Aye.
Piedmont. San Leandro.
Aye.
Stockton.
Aye.
Tracy.
Yes.
Albany.
Yes.
Pleasanton.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Fremont, and welcome to the Renewable 100 Club. We'll get you a green ribbon. Okay. A green sash, that's right. I am going to take a 5-minute recess for a bio break for the group. We're just completed item 16. We'll come back in 5 minutes to try to complete the rest of the agenda. We're approximately halfway through with the room, so we'll go from there. So we'll just take a 5-minute recess at this time. Thank you very much. Okay. Thank you. If we can reassemble, please. Okay, I think we've got, yep. Okay, thank you very much, everyone, for that. We're going to be now moving to the continuation of the agenda at this time in that method. Item number 17, new community inclusion, San Joaquin County. This is an action item for our members at this time. And with that, it is presented by Alex as well.
Thank you. Hello again. I feel like maybe I should change sweaters or something. Mr. Rogers here. Thank you. Yes, Alex DeGiorgio. And I'm very honored to be here with you this evening to present this item. And I'm also wanting to recognize that we do have board members from San Joaquin County jurisdictions online and in the room too. With that, if we can proceed. Thank you, Adrian. First, we'll start with some background, and then we'll get into more of the details about this and more context around the county's decision. So the Joint Powers Agreement provides in Section 3 for the addition of parties, and this has been used several times now in the past to approve the membership to the Joint Powers Authority and to the service area of AVA for Newark, Pleasanton, and Tracy back in 2019, and then more recently for the cities of Stockton and Lathrop in 2022 and 2023, respectively. Tracy was the first jurisdiction outside of Alameda County to join the agency. And also some more context here. Again, timing is always a factor here. By CPUC resolution, there is effectively a one-year waiting period between the time when a jurisdiction can join or form a community choice aggregation agency, and then start service. So there's a one-year waiting period between membership and the start of service. And there were recently some resource adequacy requirements that came in late that also affected that waiting period for the city of Stockton. So this is why Stockton and Lathrop will both be launching service next year in 2025. If the board approves San Joaquin County's request to join the agency, the earliest start of service because of these requirements would be in 2026. I'll talk about this a little bit more in some of the coming slides, but just as with the previous item, when it comes to the enrollment of the unincorporated communities in San Joaquin County, pending the board's approval, the enrollment could be phased. So it wouldn't have to happen all at once. It could be phased over the course of 2026 or even thereafter. Next slide, please. Thank you, Adrian. Just for a quick review, particularly for folks out in the public who may not be as familiar with our service area, but this map shows our service area. Again, we serve all of Alameda County and all of its incorporated jurisdictions, except for the city of Alameda, and that's because the city of Alameda is not eligible for CCA service because it has a municipal utility. But besides that, we serve all the jurisdictions in Alameda County as well as the city of Tracy. And then we have the cities of Stockton and Lathrop waiting in the wings for their launch of service in 2025. And that vertical line on the eastern edge of the dark green, that is the county border. That is the county line between Alameda County and San Joaquin County. And as I'm sure many of you already know and can appreciate, there's a lot of migration back and forth, commuting back and forth along the Altamont. A lot of people are waving hello to the Scott Haggerty Wind Energy Center as they go through there. So it's a very porous border there. Next slide, please. Thanks, Adrian. This slide is intended to lay out the key milestones that the county has met in order to bring us to where we are today. The county and our agency first started courting one another almost 2 years ago. The interagency romance at the county level is a slow burn, but it has gone through all of the necessary steps, beginning with requesting the load data from PG&E. We had to get authorization from the county for that so that our team could do the analyses to see how incorporating the load would affect our our agency and the cost implications associated with that. So the county has passed a resolution and ordinance as required, as well as signed the JPA agreement to join. So they've met all the requirements. And I should mention, because I don't think this quite made it into the staff report or to the agenda, that County Supervisor Rickman, former Tracy Mayor Rickman, did provide a letter of support. I think it came in not in time to be published, but I'm sure that you'll see it in the minutes. But I just want to make sure for the record that Supervisor Rickman extended his support on behalf of the County Board of Supervisors. The votes there were unanimous, by the way, every time. Next slide, please. Thanks, Adrian. Again, in terms of timing, I don't need to belabor this slide, but right now we are at the moment when your board can consider the possibility of including the county in our JPA and then launching service as early as 2026. Again, just to be clear, this is only for unincorporated communities, only the unincorporated areas of the county. Next slide, please. I know we have some San Joaquin County experts in the room, so I don't want to pretend to be one, but these are some facts about the county and something that's notable. One, the white space that you see around the red, so the red are outlining the borders of Stockton, Lathrop, and Tracy, all already members of the agency. What's there in white that does not have a border around it, those are all the unincorporated communities. Another noteworthy fact here, Mountain House was previously an unincorporated jurisdiction. Just as of, I think, maybe 1 or 2 weeks ago, it became the youngest city in the state of California. So there is a new jurisdiction in San Joaquin County, Mountain House. So that's a noteworthy fact. Another thing that's noteworthy here, Valley Link. There are, in development, there's a hydrogen-powered train that would go from eastern Alameda County to San Joaquin County, and the electrolyzer for producing all that hydrogen, I think is planned to be located just outside of the city limits of Tracy in unincorporated San Joaquin County. So that's noteworthy because they would likely use a large volume of energy that we could potentially supply with more renewable, less carbon intensive energy. And with that, I think I'll move along. Thank you. So we're going to talk a lot about the quantitative implications of welcoming San Joaquin County into the agency and service area. But before we do that, I just want to take a moment to talk about the qualitative considerations. So as mentioned before, our joint powers agreement in its recitals really lays out some very explicit purposes and missions for the agency. And all of those could be advanced by the inclusion of new communities as it has been in the past. So these include things like expanding access to competitively priced renewable energy, including offering rates that are lower than PG&E, of course, reducing energy-related greenhouse gas emissions, catalyzing local development, offering innovative programs, and advancing environmental justice. These are all things that would be accelerated and have been accelerated when we've welcomed new jurisdictions. There are some strategic considerations as well. I mentioned that the electrolyzer for the hydrogen-powered train that's under development. Other things to consider would be the transportation corridors that run through the county. This was something that we discussed when the city of Stockton was a prospective member jurisdiction, that there are lots of highways, interstate highways that go through the county that present a real meaningful opportunity in terms of transportation electrification and developing a network of fast chargers and such. Also, it's a highly agricultural economy there, as I think many people can appreciate. So there's a lot of equipment related there that also tends to run on diesel, tractors and forklifts and things of that sort. So those can all also be electrified to reduce local pollution, improve local air quality, and reduce greenhouse gas emissions. And of course, there's more stakeholder engagement that we can do. There hasn't been a lot of CCA activity historically in the Central Valley, although one of the first attempts at community choice aggregation was in the San Joaquin Valley. Although it ultimately didn't succeed, there was a lot of opposition against it from the incumbent utility. And also it was poor timing in terms of the Great Recession. But the interest has always been there. Next slide, please. Thank you, Adrian. I've already covered some of these noteworthy points. A couple of other things I wanted to call out, once we were able to review the load data for the county, and I should mention, it takes a long time to get this load data, to get it from PG&E. And then usually when we get it, there are sometimes errors in it or it's incomplete. So once we were able to review that data, it was quite illuminating, pun intended, because it revealed a couple of things. One, there's remarkably high solar adoption already in the county. There's also a meaningfully high amount of load that's attributable to agricultural accounts. And so the agricultural load is nearly a third of the unincorporated county's load. And it would increase the amount of agricultural load our agency would serve by exponentially. They'd almost triple it. And so that would offer new opportunities in terms of decarbonizing the agricultural related emissions, and among other things. It also presents a different load profile, which we can talk more about if and when relevant, but it could be a complementary load profile to what we currently serve. As far as the parameters of the analysis, it was based on current overhead costs. It assumed a 7% opt-out rate. That's slightly higher than our average opt-out rate. We just wanted to be conservative around those figures. It applies the most current rates from our most current budget. It excludes ineligible loads. That would be irrigation districts. There are a lot of irrigation districts in the county. Those are just treated very similar to municipal utilities. They're not eligible for service. In fact, the now city of Mountain House is largely served by an irrigation district, and it may not be eligible for CCA service. And then all of the data that went into some of the analyses was 2023 PG load data. That's the most recent available. Next slide, please. Thanks, Adrian. This slide is here for reference. This actually outlines the breakdown of the load of existing AVA service area, and as well as Stockton Lathrop's load once that joins, the unincorporated county's load, and then what it would be when it's combined. On the far left column, that's all in those white cells, those are all the different types of rates. And most of those rates are actually non-residential rates because they're more commercial and industrial rates that go by size. And then there's also agricultural rates, but just wanted to lay out. We can return to this slide if and when necessary. Next slide, please. Thanks, Adrian. Again, this is more for reference, but this slide shows the daily load profiles of AVA's current service area, as well as Lathrop and Stockton, and then what it would look like when they're all combined, should they be approved and begin service. Again, this is all based on 2023 load data. And next slide, please. And that should be the hourly load profile. Again, this is really for the wonks out there, but this is something that we can speak more to if it's of interest to the board. Next slide, please. Thank you, Adrian. So here's where we'd like to pause and focus a bit more. So, salute. So our quantitative analysis is really trying to get at what would the cost impacts be, and how would it affect our current value proposition to serve the load of unincorporated San Joaquin County. One caveat to this, these numbers are all reflecting a full year of service in 2026. And as mentioned earlier, it's very likely that we might phase the enrollment should the board approve the county's membership. So that would have a significant impact on what these numbers might look like if we started serving large portions of the load at different times of the year. For example, if the agricultural load were served much later in the year after the season, it might be much lower. So I just want to make that caveat here that these numbers too are illustrative because we're making the best estimates we can based on the data that we have, based on historical usage and forward-looking costs, those types of forecasts. So column A is the historical average of what a load such as unincorporated San Joaquin counties, how it would affect our net position, how it would affect our annual load and our peak load. One other thing, PR stands for power resources. So what we're looking at here is how the costs, whether they're in a high cost environment or higher cost, I should say, or lower cost, how those shake out in terms of how it might affect Ava's net position. So typical, historically, it would be favorable. It would be close to 8% increase in the net position. That equates to a little more than $10 million. This is not an average time in terms of the energy costs, as we've been discussing with the previous items. Hence these other columns that show what it would do potentially under certain scenarios to the net position once we begin service in 2026. Of course, 2026 is just 1 year, and even if it's 2026 and 2027, rates, wholesale prices go up and wholesale prices come down, but we're at a high cost environment right now. So you can see what the impact there would be to the net position in 2026 under the high cost and the low cost scenarios. I want to pause there. I imagine that this is going to generate questions. I also wanted to defer to see if you have anything more you want to cover. Okay. So again, these are illustrative numbers. They're forecasts for the full year of 2026. There are steps that we could take to mitigate those cost impacts in the higher cost scenarios, such as phasing and that sort of thing. So I think I'll pause there for a moment. And yeah, I think we can probably move along and return to this as needed. I assume it'll generate some questions. Yeah, so staff's recommendation is to approve the membership of the unincorporated county. So as part of this item, there's a resolution to approve the county's membership. And then there's a second resolution, and this is a procedural step. There's a second resolution to authorize staff to update and resubmit our implementation plan. We have to do this anytime a new jurisdiction joins our agency. It's submitted to the CPUC for certification, not approval, but a certification. And we have to have that certification, we have to submit that for certification before the end of the calendar year in order to begin service in 2026. So that calendar year waiting period would occur in 2025. For the reasons of those newer resource adequacy requirements, we're actually going to try to get the implementation plan in early before the end of September, as we did with the city of Lathrop. So that provides for a more beneficial resource adequacy environment for us. Yeah, those are the main items. As I said before, the County Board of Supervisors has already signed the JPA agreement. So the only step that's left is for your board to consider their membership and consider those two resolutions. And with that, I think that's the end of the presentation. I'd be happy to take questions.
Okay, thank you very much for the staff presentation. We'll go with clarifying questions by members at this time. So as customary, members in the room, any clarifying questions at this time? Yeah, Stockton.
No clarifying questions, just a comment. I'm obviously in support of this, but a detail that's very important is how unincorporated San Joaquin County is constituted. The city of Stockton was pretty compact for a long period of time and did not expand. And during that time, the county allowed expansion into the neighboring communities that bordered the city. When the city had eventually expanded, many of those communities did not become a part of the city of Stockton and remained unincorporated county pockets within the physical boundary of the city. So if we're talking about phasing anything here, it would be my sincere recommendation that we bring all county pockets in at the same time. And probably as soon as possible to the time when the city of Stockton is coming on. I know it'll be a year later, but those county pockets within the city, the physical boundary of the city of Stockton, will have neighbors sometimes across the street from them that can be members of AVA, and they themselves will have to wait a year. So it will provide a level of complication. There's tremendous support for AVA in the city of Stockton. If anything, I am getting pushback from people that are angry about the CPUC's decision and wanting us as a city to litigate. And the explanation to them is that there's no value in that for a number of reasons, but they are anxiously anticipating the arrival of Ava in Stockton. And I think we will have a very low opt-out percentage partially because we've been waiting for two and a half years. But my colleagues at the county are excited about this. I don't know if you saw the email today from Davis Harper, our representative on the CAC, but he's highly supportive of this as well. So let's get it done.
Thank you, Director Wright.
Can you form that in the phrase of a question? Okay.
Can we get this done?
Thank you, Member Wright. Any additional clarifying questions by members in the room at this time? Hayward, yes.
Thanks. So on the quantitative analysis chart, you said, you could consider the different kinds of phasings, per Stockton's, question or comment. So what does that do? Because it sounds like it really is a big consideration in this area, because like the agriculture, like if we phased agriculture later or first, or Stockton plus the pockets first, like, is that incorporated in this quantitative analysis?
No, so the analysis is looking at just one full year.
Okay.
Given the parameters that we had and given the load data that we had, that's how we assessed it. Historically, most of the enrollments, the historic enrollments have been phased.
I guess, are we deciding on that tonight?
No, excuse me, no. That would,
Okay.
I think that would be subject to further analysis on
Okay.
how to optimize cost impacts, customer experience, power resource procurement, those sorts of things.
Okay, and then are we also not deciding whether they're coming in as R100s or Bright Choice, or what's?
So that
the
would
mix
be up to their request.
Okay.
And for example, the cities of Lathrop and Stockton have requested to begin on Bright Choice.
Okay.
To recoup that discount. So no, we're not deciding that what service they begin on, or what the implementation timeline would be specifically.
Okay, but then I guess the one thing I do think it has an impact on is, going back to my earlier question about our 2030 goal for Bright Choice, about meeting that. So this will be another, 200,000 in that. Does that, does our decision today affect that goal, to, meet that goal?
No, it's certainly not explicitly impacting that goal. I think perhaps what you're speaking to is just more load, more demand.
Mm-hmm.
Does that increase the challenge that we have to go
Yes,
procure
that
the
right.
necessary
Yes, that's what I'm
resources to
getting
hit
at, yeah.
that goal in a cost-effective manner by 2030? I mean,
Yeah.
the reality is it does increase the challenge. That's just a lot of load that we have to serve in it.
Yeah.
And we have time, but those are just a lot of resources you have to build. And these days, if you're going to go sign a new solar PPA, for example, you're looking at a 2030 or beyond time frame.
Right,
So
yeah.
it is a significant challenge to be wary of, and we need to continue that discussion.
Okay.
But we are not coupling this decision to say we know that we need to make a change.
Okay.
Directionally, of course, it just increases the requirements for how much we need to go procure.
Okay, and then the other sort of minor question I had was, as far going back to the phasing question, I think you mentioned it was a Valley Link, that you said could potentially be a large energy draw. And so would they be as a separate item in your phasing considerations? I mean, how big of a, one item or one,
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what their load will be, or when it will come online. We've been in conversations with them. Initially, they thought we thought that was going to be in the city of Tracy. And we thought we were going to be serving them sooner.
anyway.
And then we discovered that they're actually outside the city line. So that will be subject to further discussions with them as it develops.
Okay.
I think that they would be most likely in the commercial or municipal phase,
Okay,
not
anyway.
the residential phase.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Chair.
Yeah. Any additional questions by members in the room at this time? All right, going to members online. Any questions by any members online at this time? Clarifying questions or slightly thereafter? Okay, we'll go to public comments. So at this time, is there any member of the public that wishes to speak on this item? Item number 17, please approach the podium in the room. Seeing none, any additional public comment online?
Yes. Woody Hastings, you're recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Great. Woody Hastings again with the Climate Center, statewide nonprofit organization, speaking tonight to support the staff recommendation to offer membership. to San Joaquin County and update the implementation plan. Great presentation from Alex. Climate Center, as I mentioned earlier, we have been working on community choice, or we're working on community choice for a long time. And we initially engaged with San Joaquin County in 2016 and made a number of presentations to the Board of Supervisors. And I'd like to think that some of the work we did back then is what led to this possibility of the joining tonight. Also worked very closely with board member Wright for the city of Stockton, and really pleased to see that that's still on track for launch in 2025. I wanted to speak to bullets 4 and 5 in the qualitative consideration slide from Alex's presentation that talks about local development, innovation, and environmental justice. And I'll just add to that, to be explicit about it, job creation. Members of community choice, member jurisdictions of community choice agencies have opportunities, and I think it's really important to lift up the idea of the member jurisdictions, the cities and the counties engaging with the community choice agency and vice versa to develop local resources, solar, storage, EV, electric vehicle integration. And it's a two-way street. The CCA reaching out to the cities, and the cities talking to the CCA about the brownfields, the agricultural, sector, municipal buildings, parking lots, things like that, warehouses, schools. Anyway, just so that you really have a robust dialogue. That's my main point. Thanks.
Thank you.
Any additional?
There are no hands raised at this time.
Okay, we'll close public comment and bring it back to the board for any members' comments and deliberations. Member Wright, do you have anything additional to add at this time?
No,
Any
I
questions you'd like to
Sort
add?
of added it at the last time, but I did end it at that last one with a question.
Bazinga. All right. Any additional comments by board members in the room? Yes, Member
No,
Wright.
I'm in support of it, but I will leave it to our Stockton director to make the motion.
Okay, so moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Before we go to a vote, are there any member comments for any members online at this time? Nope. Maybe? No? Okay, no? All right, so we have a motion and a second, seconded by Hayward. You got that down, Adrian?
Yes.
Okay, roll call vote, please.
Thank you very much. Alameda County,
Aye.
Dublin,
Aye.
Emeryville,
Aye.
Fremont,
Aye.
Hayward,
Welcome to the
Aye.
neighborhood.
Lathrop.
Yes.
Thank you. Newark,
Yes.
Oakland, Piedmont, San Leandro, Stockton,
Yes.
Tracy,
Yes.
Albany,
Yes.
Pleasanton.
With pleasure, yes.
Thank you. Motion passes unanimously.
Welcome, San Joaquin County, to Ava Community Energy. Truly look forward to this. Thank you so much. All right, that concludes item 17, a proud moment in Ava's history. We will now be moving to item 18. This is the e-bike program implementation contract. This is also an action item, and it's presented by Brett. Welcome.
Thanks. So while Adrian's getting the slides up, hi everyone, my name is Brett Wiley. I manage the electric mobility programs here at AVA. And you might remember this item was brought to the board previously. And we, if you want to go to the next slide, Adrian. This presentation will be about the program and also the new vendor selection. So in March of 2024, we canceled the contract with a poorly performing vendor and issued a new solicitation to get this program up and running. And that solicitation was highly competitive. And as a result, we selected a market-leading e-bike program vendor firm, Aptiv. And hopefully with your approval, we will leverage the work we previously had done to date with our former vendor and the lessons we learned from that program towards a launch this December. And one more. So this program is about vehicle electrification and decarbonization of transportation. At AVA, we have a lot of other transportation initiatives, including developing our own DC fast charging network. But we also know that decarbonizing transportation isn't just about getting more electric vehicles on the road, it's about getting more vehicles off the road entirely. And through this program, one of our main goals, including with our partner Alameda County Transportation Commission, is to mode shift people away from vehicle trips into clean and active transportation, which includes pairing bike transportation with public transportation across our service area. This program will give people hands-on experiences with a relatively new technology, e-bikes, while hopefully reducing the cost of ownership for those participants. There are a lot of other peer programs in California, including with a few member jurisdictions that we will be partnering with. We're also working in close concert with the state of California, which has a $10 million e-bike program that will be launching soon statewide. And I want to sort of point on that program in particular. The state of California is investing $10 million across the entire state for an income qualified e-bike incentive program. AVA is proposing and is previously approved $10 million to invest that same amount into a program within our service area. So this is going to be on par with the largest program in the state of California and one of the largest programs across the country. We are working in close proximity with Alameda County Transportation Commission to leverage their funding towards the incentive component of this program. And because of that partnership, this program is not just for AVA customers, but it's also for all residents of Alameda County. Thankfully, we have a very low opt-out rate. So those non-AVA customers in Alameda County will be few and far between probably. And hopefully with this program, it will encourage them to opt back into our service. Through this program, we will be definitely doing 2 initiatives and likely a third based on some staff capacity and other customer needs. But this program is an incentive-based program. We will distribute incentive vouchers monthly to participants to purchase an e-bike from local bike shops. And again, if we decide to move forward with lending, we will also institute incentive vouchers for lending at local bike shops. The goal of this program is to get around 8,200 new e-bikes purchased and on the road. 40% of those would be for income qualified participants. And every one of those income qualified participants would be eligible for an additional equipment safety voucher that can go towards a helmet, lights, and a lock. And again, if we do move forward with the e-bike lending component of this program, we expect around 5,700 e-bike lending sessions as a result. This program is expected to launch in December, as I mentioned, and it would run through the end of 2026 as scheduled. Really important point on the budget. This is a $10 million program. All of the funds have been previously approved by the AVA board. These have been approved for $6 million coming out of the local development budget. And those were in $2 million allocations in fiscal year 2022, 23, and more recently in the fiscal year 24 budget. And then the additional $4 million is again coming from a grant that was previously approved and has been signed with the Alameda County Transportation Commission. That one's going entirely to e-bike incentives. Some of our program priorities. First and foremost, this is, again, going to be a very large program. It's not just going to be one of the largest e-bike programs in the state of California and across the country. It's going to be the largest residential program AVA has ever launched. Largest in terms of not only largest dollar value for residential program, but the number of customers we expect to reach. If you haven't been following the e-bike market so far, you will once this program launches, I guarantee it. But cities, City of Atlanta, State of Minnesota, in the past month, they've launched programs and they've had over 10,000 participants subscribe to the program within just a couple of days in those initiatives. We expect this to be a very high demand program, and we're designing the program to ensure that it's also a good customer experience for everyone. So one of the ways that we are going to be doing that is this, the program will issue a universal voucher, and it will be done through a randomized selection. So instead of being the fastest click in the West and trying to be right at a computer at a specific period of time, we know that not everyone has the privilege of just being available at a random time during any day to click a button and apply. So there will be a window of time where people can apply, and there will be a randomized selection mechanism by which people are chosen. And if they're not chosen in the first round, they'll automatically get re-enrolled for another 2 rounds before they would have to reapply again. We're also going to make sure this is a really positive customer experience by working really closely with our local bike shops. We have 44 local bike shops across our service area. We hope that all of them will eventually enroll and to participate in this program. But we really want to make sure that the participation is fair from the time that people apply to the time that they go and redeem that voucher in person at a local bike shop. Another way we're going to be focusing on this program and making sure it's delivering the equitable goals is that those 40% of program benefits are delivered directly to CARE and FARA income qualified participants. They will be selected separately from everyone else. So in a lot of these types of programs, if you include all of the incentives in one bucket, we'll primarily have more people disproportionately who are not income qualified participate in the program and disproportionately get more funds than the income qualified allocation. So we will be separating the income qualified selection from the non-income qualified selection. As mentioned previously, we're looking to mode shift participants away from single-use transportation, vehicle transportation, into clean active transportation and public transportation, working closely with BART and AC Transit to make the connection between biking and using bus and train. And then again, if we do opt into selecting the lending component of this program, which will be based on staff capacity and our customers' needs, we'll hopefully demonstrate how e-bike lending as a try before you buy experience could help people in pedal participation for those who would not already be primed to get an e-bike right out of the gate. If we do not execute on the lending program, all of those funds that are listed in that under the final draft scope of work in your packet would be entirely allotted to the e-bike incentive program. Next slide. Okay, so where did this solicitation go? So March 2024, we put out the solicitation. It was very competitive. We received 8 bids. 5 of those bids were conforming, met all of the bid requirements. One thing important to note and how it was competitive, none of the 8 bidders who submitted proposals in this solicitation submitted bids in our fall 2022 solicitation. The market's grown, and we also think we developed a more appealing solicitation for vendors to apply to. You'll see listed here a number of ways we evaluated the proposals. But one of the two really important things we did is we wanted to make sure that vendors were leveraging what we've already done. We did about 6-7 months of work to get this program launched the first time, and we're going to be leveraging all of that. And we wanted to make sure the proposals came in to leverage that work rather than trying to reinvent the wheel. We also wanted to make sure that the vendor had experience doing this program and doing it in a way that could scale a point of sale incentive program, especially for e-bikes. We found that in our first round of this, that experience with e-bikes in particular does really matter. It's a completely new and different market, and now is a really prime evaluation criteria. And with that competitive selection, we selected Aptim as our program implementer. Again, the contract would go through December 2026 and would be a budget of $10 million, all of which was previously approved by the board. So why did we select Aptim? Here's some core criteria. It's not all inclusive, but it kind of goes into some of those things I just previously mentioned. One, they're the market leading vendor on implementing e-bikes. They've launched and managed 3 of the top e-bike programs in the country, including the city of Denver's, which for a lot of cities and initiatives across the US, it's the North Star program. And through those 3 programs, they've processed and redeemed over 20,000 e-bike vouchers, totaling over $15 million in incentives. They have a clear program staffing plan that includes 2 full-time dedicated staffers through the duration of this entire contract. 98% of the contract value is based on delivering impact directly to participants. So how does that break down? Incentives are $8.7 million entirely to customers and through our customers to our local bike shops. The admin fees are $1.3 million, and 84% of those are performance-based, based on incentives redeemed, not just getting people to apply to the program, but actually people going through and successfully going through the program. So 98% of the contract value is on impact alone. They also have and demonstrated existing technology that neatly aligns with our existing program design. So they can, they'll do some tweaks from their other programs, but this is an out-of-the-box solution, not something they have to newly build. And again, if we do move forward with lending, their proposal leverages existing retailers and the lending capacity at existing bike shops rather than building new brick and mortar stores, which was a difficulty that we experienced in the first iteration of this initiative. And for our legal team, and really important for us, they have no changes to our standard consulting agreement. So what you see in your packet is bread and butter to what we would expect someone to sign without any changes. So the requested action here is to authorize their CEO, Howard, to negotiate and execute the provided agreement and the final eventual scope with Aptum. And again, the financial impact on that is $6 million that's already been approved from our local development budget, and the added approved $4 million from the Alameda County Transportation Commission grant.
And that concludes?
That concludes.
Okay, thank you very much for the staff presentation. With that, we'll go to clarifying questions for members in the room at this time.
Keep it rolling.
Yeah. Take us there, Member Roche.
Just curious, so I understand the total amount for the program, but what is the average bike voucher cost? Like how will people, I mean, there's such a range of e-bikes.
So how much would the e-bike cost or the voucher amount?
Like per bike, yeah. Like how much, yeah, right. What is the voucher amount?
Yeah.
The voucher amount, yeah. So the voucher amount is two-tiered. So it's for a standard e-bike, it'll be $400. And then cargo e-bikes, which are e-bikes that have buckets in the front or seats in the back, or adaptive e-bikes, which are used and designed for people with physical mobilities or handicaps. Those will be $900. Now, if you are a Care or Fera customer, you would get an additional $500 on each of those two levels.
It could be substantial.
Okay.
Yes, yeah, and in the City of Denver's program, for the higher tier income qualified levels, that covers roughly 80 to 100% of the average e-bike cost.
Thank you.
Yeah, but we do expect for most people, there will be additional costs. We're not looking for this program to entirely subsidize the cost of an e-bike, but to draw down that cost so it's more affordable.
Thank you.
Okay, Member Marquez?
Thank you, Chair. Is the program designed for adults only?
It will be for anyone over 18.
Thank you.
Okay, any additional questions by members in the room?
So just really quickly, so going back to the coverage, so 80 to 90% for a standard bike or a Care Fera customer would be the anticipated coverage, meaning that then the bike itself costs $1,000 to $1,100.
So if you're getting a cargo bike, it would be $1,400 a voucher if you are a Care or Fera customer. If you're getting a standard e-bike, it would be $900.
No, but my question is, what is the cost of the bike, not the cost of the value of the subsidy?
Yeah, so we will have a wide range of qualifying e-bikes in the program. All of the e-bikes will be certified. They're not going to be any direct-to-consumer bikes. They'll all be e-bikes that are sold in local bike shops. We are going to have a range of e-bikes, so we're going to have some price points that are in the $1,000 to $1,300 for customers that are price sensitive, and there will be e-bikes in the program that are in the $3,500 to $4,000 range for folks that do want a more premium e-bike.
Thank you. They ride themselves. Yeah.
Yeah. But there will be a range. Yeah.
The Tesla. Any additional clarifying questions by members in the room? All right, going to members online. Member Cox first, please.
Thank you very much. I'm very excited about learning about this e-bike program, and I do have a couple of questions. With the money that we're spending on this contract, is there a safety training going on that each person that is onboarded with this bike, are they getting training?
It's a good question. If we do the lending component of the program, that would be a requirement of the lending component. Now, we are looking to make this to be a very easy customer experience, which includes our customers being the local bike shops. We don't want to change the alter too much the purchasing process. Most bike shops, when they sell a bike, they will go through sort of the run of the bike. They want to keep you as a customer. They want to bring you back in for additional service. The people who go through the incentive purchasing program are not going to be required to go into any type of safety class. However, it's part of the customer experience. One of the first emails they will get is a manual about e-bikes, including what is an e-bike, what to look for, rules of the road, safety, how to charge. So that manual will be provided to every participant in the program. And again, if we do go forward with the lending experience, we will be requiring that bike shops do a safety course for those participants, as well as provide helmets, lights, and locks.
Okay.
Also, to add on to that, we are partnering with local community-based organizations like Bike East Bay and Scraper Bikes, who do offer bike safety and community ride courses. So we will be leveraging existing resources in the community that already do that. And people will be free to participate in those programs.
Okay, that's helpful. As far as, you mentioned about the repairs, are these going to be like repairs that are like inside vans that they bring their equipment and then they'll be dispatched to repair these e-bikes based on where we're located in our service area? I just wanted to kind of understand a little bit of what kind of coverage that we have there.
Yeah, so each of the bikes will have a standard warranty to be qualified in the program. The maintenance relationship will be between the program participant and the local bike shop, though. We're not going to get involved in that. If most bike shops offer some type of service plan that you can buy that's on top of the standard warranty. That's something that will be left up to the participant and the bike shop.
Okay. But I just want to make sure that, if I represent Fremont and South End and Newark, that are we going to then have to travel all the way up to Berkeley or other places? I'm just trying to understand what their network is, or their, what their, how they're set up, so that, we're within 20 minutes or 30 minutes of a drive or something to get our bikes repaired.
Could I maybe amend your question, if I may, Member Cox? So how do bike shops enroll so that they might be able to be a facility for them? Maybe that's a bit of a different change of your question, if you're okay with that, Member Cox?
That's fine. I'm just trying to find out if they're more mobile. Some bike shops now are going mobile as opposed to, Google has them that they dispatch and they do the repair work as needed. And if you get stopped on the road, then they'll send somebody like a AAA to help you. So just trying to understand what we're signing up for here.
Yeah. So,
but I appreciate your input there, Chair.
Yeah. So I can answer, both of those components. We are engaged with all 44 local bike shops across our service area. All of those are traditional bike shops, brick and mortar locations. They're not mobile centers, although some of them do have mobile repair service. And they do span our entire service area. I will say, though, that there are parts of our service area where there are few or no local bike shops. And, sad to say, like City of Tracy, the only bike shop in your city is closing down. And so that's going to be difficult. But we are working with bike shops across our entire service area, and with Stockton and Lathrop. Yeah, exactly. So with Stockton and Lathrop, soon to be joining, there will be more opportunities in San Joaquin County. But yes, they will be expansive across our service area. There's definitely higher ridership in Berkeley and Oakland, as you pointed out, but we're making sure that enrollment of those bike shops is distributional across our service area and not just located in Northern Alameda. Yeah.
Okay, I think it would be great. I mean, you mentioned 44 brick and mortar, which I assume a lot of them are probably small businesses. And that would be something great to kind of add on to our statistics when we report out on small business or small minority businesses that we're utilizing them as part of our network and helping the community in that aspect. I did kind of do a quick number count for $100 on the equipment allowance by way of looking just at my Amazon shopping for the moment. And it seemed like maybe if there's a way to, I'm not sure how you arrived at $100, but it seemed like some of the equipment, the most of it is going to go towards the helmet cost that maybe consider bumping it just a little bit to $125, if that could be a possibility under consideration there. I just kind of threw in a helmet and some knee pads and elbow pads, the lights and the lock, and I came out a little bit over 100 there. And I know it depends on the brand and the type of quality and the model kind of varies there, but I just thought I'd mention that while we're talking about this topic. And just kind of seeing how you arrived at the $100 there.
Yeah, so the $100 was recommended by Aptum, who had a similar amount in one of their other programs in Colorado. One of the things they noted when they developed the equipment voucher, a lot of bike shops started packaging safety equipment, so a helmet, lights, and a lock together as a bundle, which they reduced it as a discount at a bundle. And so there is still a little bit of maybe some out-of-pocket costs there. But again, we got that from Aptum from their proposal. And, again, we haven't launched the new iteration of this yet, and it will be informed by what we see in the community. So we have 4 months to launch and talking with local bike shops about those safety equipment packages. If, it's getting to be a lot higher, then we would consider increasing the voucher.
And just to be fair, like Denver is a little bit lower cost region than out here in California to consider. So just to kind of add in the cost of living factor there. My last question is this. I was looking on their website and I'm not sure, but maybe you could help me shed some light on this. One of their VPs has the title of Senior Vice President, David Lowe, Nuclear Decommissioning. And what's so nuclear about these e-bikes that we're buying? Is there a nuclear component that I don't know about? Because I haven't seen it in the presentation, but it just kind of raised a flag there as I'm looking at their executives, and why would they need somebody with nuclear background there?
So
working for e-bikes. So could you help shed some light on that part?
Happy to shed some light. There's no relationship between the VP who's doing that work and this e-bike program or the staff that are going to be working on this program. Aptum is a global company. They have over 3,000 employees, and they work across a lot of different sort of sectors. Energy is one of their specialties, including energy infrastructure. They sort of got a great opportunity to launch the first e-bike program in the country with the city of Denver, and subsequently launched 2 more. So they kind of built a niche for themselves in e-bike incentive programs. Certainly not their most prominent sector, because it's still a growing industry in general in the US. But yes, there's no, they do a lot of different work. and there's no relationship between their nuclear decommissioning work and this e-bike program.
Okay, so there's nothing nuclear on any of the e-bikes that we're buying that would need that type of services. So
That would
I just
be
thought
a
I asked that
national
because it just
security
kind
risk.
I didn't want us all
yes,
glowing here, on the bike, so.
These bikes will be 100% powered with Ava energy at people's homes or in the public community.
Okay, one other question. On this charging station of these e-bikes, are they like special unique charging versus if I pull up on our EV charging stations for cars, home, Fremont has home to Tesla. Is there any cross charging that's the same, or is it all different? Because I'm just not familiar with that type
Great
of
question.
charging.
Great question. So you can charge an e-bike in the same way that you can charge an electric vehicle in a grounded 120 volt outlet. So anywhere where you can, essentially plug in your EV to a 120 volt outlet that's grounded, you can plug in an e-bike. There's no specialty charging infrastructure needed. It's a simple plug.
Okay. Now, are any of this going to be, well, I know we're East Bay, but do they have territories like in other cities like San Jose or San Francisco? I'm just curious. I know this may be outside of our region of where Ava is concerned, but, just trying to see if there's some other adoption in other cities nearby too.
So for e-bikes, City of San Francisco through SF Clean Power does have an e-bike incentive program. Aptum doesn't operate there, a different vendor, but yeah, we will be the most prominent e-bike program, again, not only in California, but the region. The other closest one is in Contra Costa County. Their transportation authority has a very small e-bike incentive, but there are not a lot of other programs in our region.
Okay. Thank you so much for answering all my questions. I appreciate it. I'm very excited about this.
Yeah, happy
Thank
to.
you.
Looking forward to working with you.
Member Badilla? Thank you for your patience.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I just had a couple of questions for staff. Yeah, I guess two questions. Is there any way that the city of Tracy can get into this program, since it's right, adjacent to Alameda County? And it's a related question. Was there any luck in materializing anything with Ed Fippen from Tracy Cyclery, or is that the one that you're saying is closing down on Tracy Boulevard?
Yeah, so unfortunately, that's the only shop in Tracy, and that's the one that's closing down.
Yeah, okay.
Any Ava customer or Alameda County resident can participate in this program, regardless if their jurisdiction has a bike shop or not. Again, we're going to be enrolling bike shops that are proportional across our service area, and hopefully within a close driving distance, or at least a bike or train ride away.
Okay, so is this available to San Joaquin County residents also?
It will be, yes. Yeah, in
Okay,
San Joaquin
all right.
County, any Ava customer will be able to participate.
Okay, all right. Sorry, just last asterisk question. At the same time as when Alameda County starts, right?
Correct, yeah, it will be rolled out all at the same time, not in phases.
Okay, I appreciate it. Thank you, Seth. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Okay, any additional questions? Yes, Member Roche.
Thank you. Just really quickly, I just want to be clear as far as like liability and follow-up repairs and all those things that come with owning an e-bike. I think, once they get the voucher and they buy their bike, it's the same liability as buying a bike out of the store, right? It's almost like cash, so it doesn't become like an Eva bike that we have responsibility for. It's like a personal bike like you would buy at any store.
Correct.
Okay, good. I just wanted to make that clear. Thank you.
Okay, so I paused myself. So I just wanted to confirm there is a process for new bike shops enrolling or any additional opportunity sites that our Ava customers can go to try to do this, right?
Correct. Yep.
Okay. And then implementation timeline, you're saying December, so you're going to miss the holiday rush. Any chance we could be like Apple and get it so we can have it for Christmas?
We'll
I'll leave
see.
that to staff.
We'll make no promises. We'll make no promises.
I literally was gonna buy an e-bike for my birthday coming up.
Well, you
but-
might
and
be,
I
you
will
might be
wait for this
primed
program.
already. So this program's goal is to prime people who are not already going to get an e-bike.
I'm
So
ready.
you may not need the incentive.
Yeah, might come with a solar battery for my house. Okay. Any additional questions by staff or excuse me, by members? Okay, opening it up to the public right now. Is there any members of the public in the room that would like to speak on this item? We are on item 18, e-bikes. Obviously, a lot of member deliberation. Seeing none, going to virtual public comment. Any members of the public online that would like to join us?
There are no hands raised this time.
We'll close public comment, bring it back to the members for a motion or deliberations. I will mention first, give me a break, that CAC did say they unanimously supported the program as stated. Was there any additional comment by CAC, Adrian, that you had? That was it, right? Okay, so yeah, so CAC did say they support it. So yes, moved by Member Gonzalez of San Leandro.
Seconded.
Seconded by Albany. Okay, any additional closing comments on this item? Hayward, loving you today, Hayward.
But I just, I'm talkative tonight. But I just wanted to thank you and appreciate, you know, that you are, that the performance is based on vouchers actually redeemed and not sort of given out. Because I think a lot of these programs, they can come, yeah. So I just want to appreciate that. And then I think it's great that they're not asking for any changes on the standard agreement, because I mean, that means they're trying to be very accommodating. So I appreciate that. Thank you. And I support it.
Okay, Member Tiedemann.
Just briefly to echo that, my thanks to staff, given that we had previously had a service provider, so I appreciate that we went back, did new RFP and got responses to it. I think that is real strength that we were able to recognize what we're trying to do wasn't quite working, and we went back and we got more options this time and came back with a stronger program, which is really appreciated.
Any additional member comments before we roll call?
No,
I'll just,
and
of course.
just want to thank Alameda County Transportation Commission for the partnership. This is a great example of leveraging resources. So thank you for your work on this. Great presentation.
I will close out by saying exactly the same thing. Thank you very much to ACTC. And Pleasanton, you know, we did our climate action. I'm sure a lot of us, transportation is a significant contributor to our greenhouse gases in our community. Bike incentives, bike ped, trails, connection points, all matter. And so reducing the barriers to get this program, I think this is outstanding and good partnership. So appreciate the extensive staff report and knowledge on it. Okay, with that, we'll go with a roll call vote, please.
Thank you. Alameda County.
Aye.
Dublin.
Aye.
Emeryville.
Aye.
Fremont.
Aye.
Hayward.
Aye.
Lathrop.
Yes.
Newark.
Yes.
Oakland. Piedmont. San Leandro.
Aye.
Stockton.
Yes.
Tracy.
Yes.
Albany.
Yes.
Pleasanton.
Aye.
Passes unanimously.
Excellent. Thank you very much. That concludes item 18, the e-bike program. We are moving to the last item, which is item 19, board member and staff announcements, including requests to put items on future board agendas. I wanted to just maybe state that as board chair, we have reinvigorated the list and we're trying to clear off some of the prior items now that we've kind of resettled with the CEO. And so if there are things we're trying to track and clear them out. So with that, is there anything that any member would like to add for future agendas at this time? San Leandro.
So really quickly, and whether it's at the board or at committee meetings, on the treasury report that we had balances by accounts, understanding how those balances are changing through time, perhaps over the last 24 months. I think that kind of information would be useful. So that could be in finance committee, or whether it does, I don't know that it has to be at the board. The other one, there's been a couple of meetings now where we've talked about the emissions computation methodology, and that could change significantly. I certainly don't understand the impact of that for us, but because you as CEO brought it up twice, it strikes me that it's probably worth some sort of discussion at some point in time before it gets here in the distant future.
Excellent points. Any additional ones by any additional members at this time? All right, seeing none. Before I adjourn, I would just remind everyone that we will go on recess in August. So the next AVA Community Energy meeting is September 18th for the full board. And with that, we are adjourned.
Great night, everyone. Thank you.
I know, really. Dodgeball.
You guys all feel like you